Now I know.
Or the Grinch, I can't remember which one.
Don't say that on camera. Kids watching.
What, that he's the Grinch?
Mommy, I just heard on the CROA meeting.
Jackson's the Grinch?
Ruining Christmas and all other holidays.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're live. Welcome to the Board of Directors meeting, Monday, October 29th, 2018. We'll start with owner's comments period. I've just looked at the list of people who have signed in. Nobody has checked. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to make an owner's comment? Because we do it now and not during the meeting. Seeing none, let me ask Steve. Verify the meeting has been properly noticed.
Yes, it has.
And verify that we have a quorum.
Yes, you do.
We have 100%. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So I'll now formally call the meeting to order. Move to adopt the agenda.
I have one item.
Please.
Somewhere, we can either do it under board comments or we can put it on the agenda. I want to just discuss the tennis courts and pickleball a little. It'll take 4 or 5 minutes, but that's what.
Why don't we dovetail that after management report?
Fine.
That work for you?
Yep.
So pickleball courts and,
The tennis courts at
Tennis.
the school related to pickleball.
got it. With that adjustment,
Motion to.
move to approve with one adjustment. Second from Vaughn. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so we have an adopted agenda. I'm glad to see a full board tonight, as we have had for most of our meetings. Several of us missed the workshop 2 weeks ago today, 2 weeks ago. So I know that carried on. I watched the 2 hours and 19 minutes of it, or 9 minutes.
9.
Sorry. Details. And just an announcement, this meeting was rescheduled from last week, so our next board workshop with a pretty full agenda is next Monday, a week from today. So we'll be dealing with things that these will be posted, CROA election standards, Park and Recreation Master Plan kickoff, some information update processes regarding incidents that may happen in town. I'm going to add something that several of us were at last Saturday, Celebration 25 follow-up and what an appropriate follow-up would be. So a full agenda then, and then 2 weeks later, another full agenda. So
For the sake of the board, Steve and I met tonight to discuss about the Parks and Rec Master Plan kickoff. We're going to be putting together 7 or 8 slides and talking about the process and our recommendation for who could help us with the consulting process. And we're probably going to need 45 minutes to an hour.
okay, good.
Just so
Thank you
people can
for
plan
that.
accordingly.
That's helpful. We'll still manage that as a manageable 2-hour workshop meeting. Approval of minutes. We have 4 sets of minutes. If we can lump them together. CROA Workshop 9/10/2018, CROA Board Meeting 9/26, CROA Town Hall Meeting 9/17, and then CROA Workshop 9/24. We have a move to adopt those.
So move.
Thank you, Jack.
Second.
Second from Brian. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Committee reports, ARC.
Good evening, Michael Valakat, Chairman of ARC, for the record. In our October board meeting, we had 73 applications. I'm sorry, in the last month, we had 73 applications were reviewed. In September, 66 were approved and 7 were declined. The top requests were 16 roofing, 15 painting and exterior and security devices, and 15 landscaping. Design and planning was 11. So the ARC approved, and we also approved the modifications to the shutter covenant, decorative trim, and storm guidelines. In September, you're going to be looking at that at number 9 tonight for the design guideline change. We talked about the importance of the shutters, maintaining the architectural detail in the homes so they don't change what we have now, and if you have any questions, then I can answer them now if you like, or I could stick around if you want.
If you're going to stick around, that'd be great.
I wasn't going to, but I could if you want me to.
I don't have questions on that.
Okay.
I
I'll stick
also
around.
believe Jeffrey will be here, correct, Tony?
Oh, good, if Jeffrey will be here, that'll be even better. And just to follow up then, as I always state, if any residents has any questions about permitting or guidelines, staff is always here to help. Okay? Any other questions?
Questions or
not related
comments
to
from the
shutters?
board? As always, thank you for your service. Thank you for pulling together the shutter piece pending
I
questions.
think it came out okay. We'll talk about it in, what, 5 minutes?
In about 10, depending on
Stop.
things. Next committee, Dog Park. Is that Dory?
Dory Moyer, Dog Park. I'm filling in for Maureen Stellwag tonight. So some of this she sent to me, some of it I had to tweak because we got some new updates after she sent it. So basically, the Dog Park Committee update. The committee has been working to raise additional funds for purchase to install lights at the dog park. To date, fundraising efforts include offering fall and holiday-themed pet photos at Food Truck Fridays, Fall Fest, and the park. There's ongoing efforts to sell the remaining legacy bricks and tiles to businesses and/or residents. The dog park has raised funds to cover approximately half the cost of purchasing and installing lighting at the dog park. The committee has requested additional financial support from this board to close the gap so that residents can utilize the park before and after work hours, particularly in the winter months. Once funding is secure and the purchase and the installation of lights is obtained, it'll take approximately, we think, about 8 weeks. So in order for the residents to fully utilize the park during this season, obtaining those funds would be wonderful, but I know that's a work in progress and we're being patient. The committee has made minor revisions to the dog park rules and regulations and also developed a proposed enforcement policy. Documents were submitted to this board in September and were reviewed and approved at the October 1st workshop. As of this past Friday, based on the request of the board to send this to the town attorney, we did receive approval Friday, and in which he made a few minor changes, tweaked it a little bit, but basically all in all, we're in good order. So JR is now currently finishing the formatting and branding, and we'll have a fileable PDF so that residents can go online, pull up the incident report, fill it out, and submit it all at one time. And we should have that by Thursday, I think, somewhere that. And our next meeting is Thursday, so we're hoping that this will all be in place. There have been several incidents of rule violation and aggressive dog behavior that were reported to Town Hall. Unfortunately, until we had this final approval in place, we were unable to proceed with our approved enforcement policy. And the lack of timely response does put our dogs and residents in danger. But as of Thursday, our dog park committee will now have what we believe is the approved branding and forms ready to go to enforce the policies to keep our pets and residents safe at the dog park and our park in optimal condition. Oh, and I'll have that on the other thing, that we are also working on Todd is working on for us the rules that you also approved at the last workshop for the rules to be posted, and he's very close to having that for us maybe by Thursday too, so we should have everything ready. Any questions?
Thank you, Dory. Questions? So the tweaks that the attorney made are nothing that needs to come back here?
No.
I think the major modification was we can't put an age restriction on the dog park, so I think that was modified to, I think, again, be a suggestion not to have a certain age, under a certain age attending the park, but the attorney said against Fair Housing Act, I believe.
How does that tie into the statute?
I think I didn't know that. That's new to me. I think that's a big mistake, but.
Did the attorney say that in the reading from last Friday or Thursday?
Yes, that was part of the legal opinion on it.
there were two legal opinions. You're referring to the one about town hall, right?
It was the
Same
same opinion though
applied.
for the dog park.
How does that
Well, I don't know.
dovetail
I'm
with the
gonna do-
statute about age restriction?
I'm going to do a little more research on that, because I think that's, okay. You know, I have a notebook about that
I know.
thick, and I've researched 50 parks, and the ASPCA and the Humane Society, they all have a requirement, they all make a recommendation. We don't have to have necessarily, I would say at least you have to put on there, it is recommended, if nothing else.
That's what I'm
So-
talking about,
so-
just changing the wording of it, recommended to not be under a certain age. I think the difference here, and I'm not an attorney, let me preface by saying that, or pretending to be one, but because it's the homeowners association, and a homeowner association amenity, there is not state statute, it's federal, housing act. And that's where his recommendation, and he gives a complete breakdown of the act and why that he thinks that applies to this.
So I know that the board saw this afternoon the attorney comments on town hall. The board has not seen the attorney comments on the dog park, correct?
That's correct.
We will certainly forward.
So
them.
that does address age there specifically?
It does. Exactly as it addresses age in the town hall.
So the committee can do.
I haven't seen it myself, so I didn't
I
even know
don't
that.
think, none of us have.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll forward it to the board, but this was board direction to ensure that it followed laws and that we're doing what we're supposed to do, and this is the opinion that came back to.
Yeah, it was an expansive reading, but that's what we pay our attorneys for. And we pay them to reduce our liability. And so if the attorney for the board says, this is the language I would recommend, I respect all the research you've done, but until you've
No, I agree.
been through the bar and
I thought
passed
he
it
said
and a
we
member
couldn't
of the
even put
bar, I think we should
recommendation on,
not,
so I stand
yeah,
corrected.
we should
there.
not be stepping on his toes.
Right.
Right, no, I agree. I misunderstood what he said.
Let me ask you a hypothetical, Brian, since let's not discuss it with the board question. As regards the LED lights, if we advance you the funds as a loan that we expected to get paid back, would the committee be acceptable with that and pay it back over a period of time?
I can't speak on behalf, but I would say I think they would be very excited to discuss that on Thursday. And are you talking about LEDs or of solar, or no, we can't do the
I'm
solar?
talking about the dog park.
Okay.
Well, the solar, the type of lights are all gonna be through our TCC
Okay.
restrictions and tons.
I think that, I can't, again, speak on behalf of them, but I would definitely think that they would be very excited to discuss it on Thursday at 9:30, first thing on the agenda.
And if you did discuss it, how long would it take you to pay us back? You can discuss that on Thursday. I mean, you know the numbers now,
Right.
and,
Right. We
and-
ha-
and
we have
just
the
for sake,
ability to
I have
raise that.
responded to an email to the dog committee before where I have said we've spent a lot of money on dog parks, so we have a lot of other people who want to talk about other issues, but I'm trying to also help you find a solution. I think the dog park and other things have not been done properly, because we should talk about all the issues. It's like our athletic complex that got approved for $3.3 million, that's costing $4.5 million, because we didn't think about whether or not girls should go to the bathroom. You know, some of that's just dumb. So, okay, if we're gonna do this, we've spent so much money, if we loaned you the money at 0% interest rate, and you agreed to pay us back over 2 years or 3 years, could you do that? That's my hypothetical question.
So,
Well, essentially, what you would be doing is just floating the money out, knowing that the committee that you all have assigned is going to be paying it back. They're gonna work through paying it back, because they're not two separate entities, so it
Yeah,
wouldn't be a transfer.
Versus spending money, it's an advance.
what I think that does is, it goes back to the workshop of a couple of weeks ago, and I think Jackson's point is, whatever policy or approach we set up for one group would be the same for all. So if we were to loan money for enhancements, then the same will be true for the ball fields, when they want $500,000 for this or $20,000 for that. So whatever we do, then we would start advancing groups' money, and they have to raise half of it.
I mean, I think
So
that.
we need to philosophically discuss consistency across groups and amenities.
Yeah, part of the challenge, I've been thinking about this since the workshop, and I appreciated the fact that Brian read the agenda differently and we went down a different road. But every group has its own particular interest. The dog park committee, the ball fields committee, you know, the pickleball, the artisan park playground, and so on. Steve asked me a really interesting question earlier today. He said, what would you do as an individual homeowner, should the Bank of CROA be giving money to various entities? It's a good question, but it seems to me that you always have that competing interest for different groups. I may never use the ball fields, I probably won't use the dog park, but as a resident of the community, it's an amenity and it's something important. So we have put together this recreation master plan, and as we go forward in the master plan, it seems to me that part of what we have to be talking about is not just the initial expense of these projects, but the secondary, sort of more obvious, what's the next thing that would have to be added? Because it's hard to imagine that the dog park was built and nobody said, hey, by the way, it gets dark at 5 p.m. for most of the year.
We couldn't afford it, yeah, we did.
But why wasn't it included? Why wasn't it discussed? Why wasn't it put into the master plan? Why didn't we have those discussions? I don't see a record of them. Maybe I'm missing them.
Well, I think if we
Like
were to
phase
go back
one,
and
phase two.
if we were to go back and review the record, I believe, in paraphrasing, but the board direction was, we're gonna spend this amount of money on a dog park. If you want more, raise the money and go find ways to fund it. And that's why the Special Events Committee at the time started their campaign and raised quite a bit of money to build purchase the statue and the monument out in front. And I think that same conversation was held leading into the athletic field complex too. This is how much we want to build, and then any above and beyond that, the groups can raise additional dollars.
Was that,
Yeah, but
was that done as a formal motion or a sense of the board or written down
I went
somewhere?
to the meetings, there's just no way.
There was during the dog park conversation,
Yeah,
absolutely, was a
exactly.
huge part of that conversation was, this is how much we want to spend, and anything above and beyond that, additional amenities for that park, we would like to see fundraiser. And it was even written into the resolution for the special events.
That's
It's
what
not
I
the discussion with the
remember,
ball fields.
Okay, but all right.
I mean,
don't-
bathrooms
don't
are
wanna
a whole
derail
other
this meeting.
conversation.
I'm asking a hypothetical, we have not talked about it as a board, but it's,
We have a possibility of selling, I think 17 tiles, and any additional bricks would get us to around $13,000, so.
13 more?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that would cover what
We
we
have
would
around
need to
12.
pay back.
So you can deal with it hypothetical, but we as a board should also talk about what's our overall policy with
going
any
back to
entity.
Jackson's thing about a bank, a bank would assess the ability to repay. That's an ability to repay. I mean, we may do it, we may decide it's stupid, I don't care, I can
Right,
go either way,
right.
but
We should-
I'm trying to think outside the box.
That's right, good
And
discussion.
you're gonna have to do this up to all the groups down the road. You're talking about pickleball courts. What if let's say hypothetically, you build the pickleball courts over here at the tennis courts, and we resurface them, we do the whole thing, and then down the road, we're saying, you know what, we really need some more lighting there, or we need something better there. Are we gonna do the same thing there and become a bank for them
Or
too?
netting
Or, where does it end? I mean, should we be forcing these people to pay for this stuff, or is this something we should be paying for, or should we pay maybe only for things that involve safety issues, and then they can pay for cosmetic issues?
Like a dog, like the entry.
You know,
of a dog.
like the statue, I mean, I think we really need some good guidelines here, and I don't know why we would have people pay for things that involve, safety issues. I don't.
It's a good point, good discussion.
That's a level of service question too. I mean, at the time, that board chose to not have it open at night. They wanted it open from dusk to dawn.
So further discussion on that, Kevin? Okay.
Dawn to
Was
dusk.
this the
I think I said
same,
that wrong.
were there members of this board that were on the same board for the fields? I believe there were,
For the athletic field complex?
yeah. I believe there is
Yeah, three.
at least one that was over.
It'd be two.
There were three of us.
Jack,
The
and-
one I'm thinking of. It's just interesting to see how processes were and how they were done halfway to go ahead and say we achieved something but didn't finish the job correctly. So we're gonna have to discuss this. This is gonna be a workshop, and it's gonna be a
Yeah.
long discussion.
Anything else for Dory? You've endured us.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can I just add one more comment, though? This is not an uncommon problem amongst municipalities that are looking for capital improvements within their park facilities. You have to decide who's gonna get what and how you're gonna divide the pieces of the pie up.
Yeah,
Which
but
is
why
Brian's
don't you just say
discussion on the master
that this
plan.
is what it really costs? I mean, I think that's the point, is, as we go forward in this master plan, let's have the candor to tell the community, this is what the project really costs. Now, we may have to do it in stages. We may choose to pay for it or not pay for it or do other things, as Vaughn said. But I think this kind of idea of kick the can down the road and pretend that It's enough to just do something and then let a later board and a later group of people figure out how to resolve the real problems that come behind that. You know, I think we're smart enough to look at the ball fields and know that even with $4.5 million, there are things that are not going to be there that people are going to want. And it's really pretextual to say, look at what we've done. We've built this ball field, which is wonderful, but we haven't done X, Y, and Z that make it useful, right? And
Right.
so I just want to get us, I'm with Kevin, I want to get us into that conversation in a workshop
Yeah.
and really talk it through and see how we can do it. Maybe there's a better way, maybe there isn't.
Well, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Artisan Park? Okay,
I can update you quickly.
sure.
Artisan Park, they did submit their reports and budgets.
Right.
They are moving forward with their elections for their committee. They are now coming up on 1 year with the management company, Evergreen, and reviewing what's worked, what hasn't worked. I would say in general, a lot of positives. They've repainted the interior of the club. They are actually moved from $60,000 a year deficit in the operation of the club and restaurant to break even to, they think now actually they'll end the fiscal year on the plus side. So there's been a lot of good things going on there, and they seem to be doing well.
Recreation? Dory?
You can just stay.
Did I give you enough time to sit?
Thanks. The first three things on our agenda, we postponed them because Steve was unable to be there, so that basically, we submitted the waiver request for special bingo, Olympic bingo, and we did discuss about, instead of having ongoing just for everyone, if it's a specific group like Special Olympics, we try and determine how many of those a year we would waive the fees, and so we had a good discussion, and think we're going to have future discussion on limiting that. So if one group, how many times you let a group come in and ask for fee waivers or reductions or so on and so forth. That does not include management and any time of overtime by employees. The next thing we did discuss, and what I think we submitted, was for the recreation programs. Last year, if you remember, we started a process where we submitted them, and then for your final approval and then we opened it up and we tried to, enhance the programs, add more, and make it more challenging and a wider variety. And we decided, instead of going through and having them come back each year, if it's a program, we looked at all the numbers, what the cost is, what they're paying. We went through, and their inspections, and how that they are doing, and they're promoting it, and they're growing, many of them are growing, that we decided that we'll go through each one when they come up, and if they seem to continue to meet all the requirements, we don't necessarily bring them back to have to do a whole presentation. Now, if we are going to try to pick and choose between, like if it's swimming or tennis, then we would have to do that and then put out the RFP. So we're not going to do that. So basically, we approved everybody. We had 2 drop out, and a new one start, which was piano music by the American Sign Language, which I think they just had their first introductory class this month on the 22nd, which is a new program, which I think that is really exciting. And then one of the things, when we had our safety meeting, talked to Todd and the sheriff, and we were talking, we were talking about incidents in parks like Lakeside Park and people driving through, and then we talked about at your committee meeting or workshop about the speed bumps and so on. And we got to talking and found out, and Todd enlightened me, and we brought this, and Jackson was there at our meeting, thank you for coming, and we had him print out, which it's really interesting that and this would be something to think about, and we said we would talk about it at another time and more in depth, but as you open the corridor and so on, parks have different times that they open all over, and different dates from certain day to Labor Day, and then at Lakeside, the basketball courts opened half an hour after the pool and the tennis, and we just think that it might be a good idea to try to work with all of you as to, and Todd and whoever, sheriff or whatever, about getting a more streamlined set of times and openings of these parks, because they're all over the place. So we did discuss that, and we did talk about putting information on message boards and so on and so forth as far as park monitor and non-emergency numbers and everything. But that was one of the things we were going to discuss in more detail, and we will bring that to you at another time.
Okay. Any comments, questions? Recreation?
I just want to say publicly how impressed I am with that committee, the members, Nikki, who's working from staff. They have a huge task in front of them to help figure out how we manage this massive asset of the ball fields as well as all the existing assets. I know you've got a workshop that you're setting up to just look at how we use the fields, how we schedule them, how we get the equipment and do the work there. I think the question that we were just talking about is a question that's well put to that committee when it comes to things like equipment for those fields. Some point somebody's going to say, hey, you need
Whatever.
balls. And, at that point, okay, how do we get them? What do we do? And have we paid for them or not paid for them? And so I appreciate that this committee has taken it on themselves to be proactive in that regard, as I think the dog park committee has as well. But it's really, I think, powerful to see how the community is taking on the responsibility for something as big as this, so we get to the direction at the board level as to what you all want to do. So thanks.
Thank you.
Do you mind if we do special events updates since Dory's doing that one too, so I don't have to keep you sitting down and getting that done?
Special events?
This is a long one, so stay tuned. Here we go. Okay, October was a busy month on the celebration calendar. On October 6th, the Fall Porch and Yard Sale was held in various locations throughout the community. October 12th, Food Truck Friday returned to Lakeside Park with an incredible response. The movie Hotel Transylvania was featured that evening with our largest movie crowd ever. Celebration also hosted there at Lakeside Park during this event, One Blood. I said, which I thought was very strange. I said, but I guess it was an interesting idea, and happy to report they attained their goal that evening of voluntary blood donations. I thought that was interesting. But anyhow, on October 20th, the Fall Festival was held at Lakeside Park beginning at 11, and despite the hot and humid weather, we welcomed approximately 3,000 attendees, many of whom were there to paint pumpkins and watch Off-Kilter concert. Next, just a reminder that the Founders Day is November 9th and 10th. Residents still have until this Friday, the 2nd of November, to purchase their tickets to this year's Founders Day picnic on the 10th, and for just $5. Everyone can enjoy a delicious barbecue from Four Rivers with their residents and friends. Tickets can be purchased at Town Hall or online. As a brief recap of this year's Founders Day events, on the 9th, Friday evening from 5 to 8, we will host Family Fun Fest, and the staff has invited the K-8 PTA to be part of this evening events, adding a bunch of fun carnival games at Lakeside Park as a mini fundraiser for them. So we hope that everyone comes out to support our K-8 school, and again, that's from 5 to 8 p.m. Then at 7:30, CROA welcomes the 9-time CMA Musician of the Year, Mac McAnally, to the Great Lawn. This is an incredible opportunity to see a world-class musician in a very intimate setting. Seating will be available, but everyone's can bring their own lawn chairs and just enjoy the concert on their own. Food trucks will be on site, and we also have our own Market Street Cafe, who also have refreshments available for purchase. Then on Saturday, the 10th, the day kicks off at 10 a.m. with a parade through town, and at 11 o'clock is the Veterans Ceremony at Founders Park, which is always a very special and moving event, which we hope everyone attends. And then also following that is the Four Rivers Barbecue at Lakeside at 1, and after lunch, the traditional town photo will be taken. So we encourage everyone to come out, purchase your tickets by Friday. Then on the 17th of November, we are back to the movies, back at Lakeside Park, where A Wrinkle in Time which is a Saturday, will be shown at Lakes on the Great Lawn at 6 p.m. December 1st, we will see a fun day of holiday fun from 11 to 3 here at Town Hall, out back in the back rooms, and residents can get their winter chill on as part of the Frozen Holiday Fest. Inflatables, crafts, frozen treats, photo booths, and holiday fun await. Then at 6 p.m., everyone is invited back to the Great Lawn for the showing of the Santa Claus movie. And if that's not enough, then on Wednesday, December 5th, we welcome Peter Mayer and the Stars and Promises Tour to Celebration for a very special evening. It will be a wonderful evening surrounded by beautiful lighting installed by Todd and his team and friends. Outside of the VIP tables, the concert is free to all. We still have a few out of, I think, 80-plus tables. I think we have about 20 left. It's limited general seating, but it is available, and residents, again, are allowed to, or permitted to, or invited to bring along your own chairs, blankets, and enjoy the evening. Refreshments also be available for purchase. And management, JR, has arranged with the tour production staff to have the concert recorded live and then made available in CDs, in which the CD sets will be purchased after the show. So it would make a great gift for those guests who come on behalf of others, or it would be something to take away that evening. And that concludes all I have for you. Any questions?
I have a couple of things really quick, and there might be more for JR, I'm not
Right.
sure. I said it on this meeting, and I said it on the one before, so thank you for having me. It's definitely eye-opening, and to summarize all of what you do in that meeting into just that is impressive, because you do a lot more. You do. I mean, there was
We
conversation
appreciate-
of even looking into how could we get a pumpkin patch going for the community. I mean, the ladies were running around making phone calls, seeing what's possible. So you guys work your behinds off.
Well, we
So thank
appreciate you
you.
coming. Thank you.
Two things that I wanted to comment on. One was Founders Day when it comes to the barbecue. I think we talked about it briefly, and last year when I went, I noticed that those working the event weren't able to have a lunch, and I'm going to put it very much how I perceived it. They got the scraps that were left over. We're a place that's big about community, and I think we're only as strong as the people that we work with, and that's our team. I'm not saying that we're going to be able to budget it for everybody, but at least the people that are working that event. I don't know if the board would consider putting the money forward for the plates for those people that are working the event. So I don't know who that's really a comment to, but I know that I mentioned it to you, and I have to bring it up here.
I think it's a wonderful, wonderful, generous, and kind idea. I like
So I'd like to make a motion that we can cover for the number of individuals working the events for our town hall staff.
What is that number? Anybody know?
That's eight.
10, I was thinking 10, no more than 10.
So
So
we're
that's it?
talking about $40 here.
well, it's already subsidized,
I thought
but,
it said like 50 people.
but maybe, I mean, I don't know if we do it that way. I
So
don't know
up
if we
to
do the same
15 up to
offer, the
15.
$5 that a resident is.
We're
I don't
talking
know.
about irrelevant monies here.
Yeah.
Second the motion.
Okay, so thank you.
We have a motion, we have a second.
So the motion was
Any
second.
further discussion on that?
Just instruct me, I can do it, but you don't need to have a formal,
Okay.
unless you feel it's necessary, but if you just tell me to do it, we'll do it.
So that's my happy one. Maybe I should have saved it for the second item.
There doesn't need to be a formal motion for that.
The other one, can you comment regarding the snow that has happened annually here at Town Hall? It's not happening from what I'm understanding, and I wanted to put that all out there.
We are not getting snow. The vendor that we had been working with the last few years decided in August that he was not going to honor the commitment. The snow is very expensive, and it's very hard to get on people's calendars. For the amount of snow we bring in, it's about 10, 15 tons. That runs over about $3,500, $3,800. But now it was just a point of being able to get on somebody's calendar to do it, and at that point, we needed them, they didn't need us, so the prices just weren't doable for what we could have blown the budget, and that's the only thing we would have had.
So I wanted to share this because this is something I learned, and I felt it's appropriate to make sure the board knows, make sure our community knows. I don't know if there's anything we can do about it. it's really a hard year. It's like the Grinch moved in. It's a really hard year for
There's going to
celebration.
be plenty, trust me, I don't think people are.
I know you have other events going on, but I'm just saying, and it's a small thing, but when it adds on to everything else in the community right now, it's.
Did you add on the $3,800 to other parts of the programming?
Yeah,
Did.
How much is it to bring in snow?
we can't get it right now.
Nobody has it available?
Nobody,
No.
nobody we can get, can't get on anybody's calendar.
Okay.
So we've enhanced other things
Okay,
by the
but let's
summer.
control the dialogue then. Let's put something in the
That's why I
Friday
wanna get
flash
ahead of
for a
it.
couple weeks to say, look, this is the reason why the vendor backed out and couldn't do it. We're using the funds for other things for the holidays.
Exactly.
And
But not, I don't want to go ahead and necessarily, because it's a hard thing to share, but I don't want to hide it and then turn around and we're going to get kicked for it either in the beginning or at the end. So I'd rather get the full reasoning out there. You've tried. You would do it if it was dollars, but he doesn't want to work with us. Or he's not able to, or whatever the
Yeah,
situation
he's
is.
no
So
longer, he's no longer coming over to this part
just
of
make
the
sure
state.
it's out there and known. It wasn't the board being grinchy, it wasn't whatever it was. Some things are beyond our control.
Is this something that we can look forward to in the future, like next year, and get an early setup on it, or not?
We have to try to find another vendor, yeah. I mean, but they're, like I said, it's not cheap, and basically they come and they blow ice cubes. That's what this amounts to.
Okay.
So, sorry, but thank you. I wanted to make sure it's out there.
I do have one other question about the event that we had for Fall Festival. We had the CROA event at Lakeside in the middle of the day, like 11 to 3 or 4, right? Where it was really warm and things were going on. And then Lexington had a downtown event going on that evening. Was there coordination between you and Lexington as to how these events would work together and what would be going on and why we would be doing two events sort of not simultaneously, but the residents are sitting out in the hot sun in the afternoon, and at night, then Lexington is doing something different with the falling leaves and so on. Can you illuminate me about
The last 5 years, it's been the same corresponding date that we've been doing Fall Fest, which happens to be the same time as Oktoberfest. We do coordinate with them, that neither event will overlap over the other one. I mean, our event is more of a family, for the residents to come out and do some interactive things, and downtown is just more of, there are some inflatables for the kids and that sort of thing, but it's more of the food and the concerts, that sort of stuff.
I thought it worked well. I mean, in all honesty, I had my grandkids here that weekend. We were there during the day. Yes, it was hot, but there was other things going on. And then they came back that night and did the bouncies and all the other type of stuff. I mean, it was pretty well attended. I thought it was safe. I thought it was managed well. I mean, the biggest complaint I can think of is you had some trash cans that were overflowing, but you had a lot of people. I mean, I thought it.
Are you satisfied with the level of cooperation that you're getting on those kinds of events with downtown?
Absolutely.
I think last year, the cold front came the day of the Fall Festival, and this year it came the day after.
The day after.
We were just unfortunate with the unseasonably warm weather that day. During the day, it's beautiful when the weather cooperates. This year, we had 90 degrees.
Anything else under special events? Thank you. Can we go to covenants?
Yes, it's not.
Dory, do you want to do covenants?
She's done everything else. Good evening, Stephen Frauenfelder, Chairman of the Covenants Committee. And for some reason, I haven't asked for next to my, were we bad?
Troublemaker.
No, it means that
Viewable by CROA
minutes
board
are only
only.
available for the CROA board is what that means.
Oh,
right
I
on here.
see. Okay. Feel persecuted going last. Okay. Covenants Committee update from the October board meeting. In September, approximately 1,000 inspection and re-inspections were conducted of single-family and service area homes. 35 resale and follow-up inspections were conducted. 129 new and completed ARC projects were also reviewed. 39 emails were sent for minor items, and approximately 56 letters were sent for major items or multiple minor items. 32 properties were reviewed at the monthly September hearing. 15 of those had proposed fines were rejected, 14 proposed fines were tabled, and 3 proposed fines were confirmed. Just a friendly reminder, Halloween is in 2 days. And this week, we'd ask that all residents, if you have not done so yet, we'd ask that if you would be so kind as to make a quick cleanup of your sidewalks to ensure that they're not slippery in case they get wet, so that we don't have any, as it's written here, little feet come slipping down the sidewalk. The inspectors continue to drive through the community, conducting routine inspections approximately every 6 weeks, and we have reference materials available in the NEBs with them to assist homeowners. The Standards Committee is also ready to work with anyone here, resident here at Town Hall, should you get a notice. We encourage you to contact them as soon as possible. They can assist you with timelines, applications, and maintenance plans. Again, thank you for everyone for all your hard work for keeping Celebration looking beautiful. Subject to your questions, that's all I have.
Questions, comments? As always, thank you for your work and work of your committee.
Okay, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
That's all the committee reports. We move to liaison reports. Jack, do you have anything from CDD? They postponed their workshop of a week ago or 2 weeks ago. Anything else?
Nothing.
The new board takes their seats when? I mean,
It's right after the
what-
election's
what
next
date is
Tuesday.
it? Is it actually officially the next day
I
or
believe the day of the election.
day of the election?
Yeah.
Unless there's a recount.
It's happened before.
That happens. So, I don't think there's a board meeting until there's a new board.
That's correct. They elected to postpone that workshop because of the agenda items. They would then have to rebrief or in-brief
Okay.
these
Mhm.
members,
I think they had 3 agenda items.
and that's why they.
Yeah, good. So that's postponed until after, I think they said November 20th or something like that.
As to the next scheduled meeting.
Yeah, good.
I have 2 things really quick regarding the CDD, and Jack, one I'll pass them on to you if you'd like. 2 residents brought up some comments that would be more to them. One is a pond item, and I'll share that with you. They brought that up to me individually. And the other is, it was a big one. I'm sorry, hold on one second. Speed limits, which we all got copied on that email. So
Mhm.
just some things to keep in mind as you do go to those meetings.
Okay, thank you, yes.
The other liaison report is an ad hoc group that Brian and I are on, Steve is on, a couple from CDD, Jeffrey Mullen is on. We're working with Island Village and with Bennett from Mattamy. And so the brief liaison report is just an update of our most recent meeting, which was 1 week ago today. I think this is our 3rd, we call it a nimble group meeting, and we reviewed a lot of the plans, not the plans, the timelines and so forth, but the main update is if you will, a modification from what we wrote in the Celebration News in August, maybe? And it came out during the town hall meeting, the community meeting that Commissioner Chowdhury and Sheriff Gibson had, where one of the last questions was, will there be a back door to the Polk Line Road? Osceola Polk Line Road. And Dave Tomac from Osceola County said, yes, that's always been the plan. And that caught at least a few of us, particularly Brian and I, and several of us who were in the room, but caught us off guard. So we talked about that at our nimble group meeting last Monday. And so the short version is, if you want me to keep continuing, the short version is that Bennett shared with us that the county had, if I'm saying this right, that the county had made an offer back in January about credits for doing having a back door, and Mattamy personnel said, no, we don't want the credits, and no, we don't want the back door. And so what the status is with the county, we don't know any more than what we heard at the meeting, the community meeting with the commissioner and the sheriff. And what we had wished, at least what I vocalized, and Brian can say yay or not, but I wish we had known the rest of the story, so we would have reframed that in our article to the community.
Go ahead and let Bennett speak for a minute.
So is that, okay.
I just wonder why they would make an offer of credits. Why would they, if they felt they could do it anyway, why would they do that?
Well, first of all, Bennett Ruiz with Mattamy Homes. Secondly, I want to apologize to some of the ad hoc members here to make myself and everybody perfectly clear. I did state, and we did write as a group, that article together, that Mattamy was not interested in installing a back door. However, I did not say and make it perfectly obvious to everybody that Mattamy isn't the only player who has a say in that back door. Residents, of course, county, of course. Apparently, in recent meetings and conversations with county officials, the comp plan had been in place since 2013 that had a provision for this back door to cut through wherever, but to cut through Celebration Island Village, to connect with Osceola County, Osceola Pope Line Road. That likely won't happen for a long time, but that doesn't mean it won't ever happen. As you can see, county moves pretty slow, and for Island Village's development, that's not in front of us right now for approvals. We're trying to get through to our first phase, but that doesn't, we don't have plans right now that go and extend past our first phase into what would be the back door. So, to make it perfectly clear, we don't want a back door. We have some reasonable feeling that some of the residents, I'm not going to say all, but some of the residents don't want the back door, but county does want a back door. Now, to answer the question about...
Some of which residents? Celebration residents
Celebration
or
residents.
Osceola County?
Celebration residents.
Okay.
There's other residents? So as it relates to the offer, the county, a lot of government jurisdictions, as part of their approval or not approval, or to help them aid in their construction of things that ultimately that they will build after collecting mobility fees, in this case, is that they sometimes ask the developer to build the road for them in exchange for us getting reimbursed via these credits. We pay credits as a developer, as a home builder, we pay credits as we go for every home that we go in for a permit. I think that's when we pay it here in Osceola County, is when we go in and apply for a building permit for the home. At that point, we pay a mobility fee. In lieu of a mobility fee, we would pay a credit if a credit was had for other things that we are paying for with them. Now, I will tell you, Mattamy Homes has other developments within the county that accumulate mobility fee credits or whatever for one reason or another that could be used here. So we might pay, we may use those credits as we go for a permit or whatever. But that is part of the reason why a county or jurisdiction or city, whatever, would extend the offer of mobility fees to somebody, impact fees, whatever. Same thing with school board, which is a different discussion, but same thing there. They would look to the developer basically to front the money, and the developer would get paid or reimbursed in the back by not having to pay those impact fees.
But
Not necessarily whole.
If I may, really quick, just because you're on this topic. So the way it works with your contract with TCC is you have to build out phase one. After you do it to their completion at whatever level it is, then you can go on and close on to the next parcel, continue construction. I believe it's 4 phases is what you're set up as? Is it 4 or 5?
4 phases, 3 takedowns.
Okay, so when you're at the ends, would you say now that Mattamy will not, on your last phase, be interested in those credits? Or is it going to be on your last phase, on the final build-out, that you are looking to take those credits from the county for that access road?
I can
So that's
say
my question.
today, we are not interested
Today.
in the back door. I can't speak for tomorrow.
I know how you use your words. You're a good guy.
I can't, nobody here can speak for tomorrow.
So the credits, if you don't take the credits, then that means that basically the county would have to pay for the road?
Yes,
Okay.
or some other developer,
Or some other developer?
maybe someone from the, I don't know. I don't know.
And the other question I have, just one more if I could. Have you ever been involved in any community development? Maybe Jeffrey has too, I don't know, but any community developments where, let's say there was a county or a government road going into a development, and then I've seen them in South Florida, where what they've done there is actually the community has gotten together and asked that that be closed off, and I know the county had, from what I understand, it may be an issue for emergency services. I don't know if that's true or not, but I know what they've done down in some other communities is to give emergency services like police and fire access through a controlled gate that they have either remote control or they operate it from the station or wherever it happens to be, and then they can actually gain access through a controlled gate remotely where normally everyday traffic wouldn't have access to that road. Have you ever been involved in anything like that or heard of it?
I've heard of it, yes. Not directly involved in it.
I mean, if the road was just a non-negotiable item that the county says we're doing it, we don't care what you're going to say, I'm just wondering if that's something that would be an option. I didn't know.
In terms of just a
Emergency services access road.
emergency access only,
Yes.
from my understanding of our conversation with the county, is that, we could continue to have a conversation with them. Things will change over there at the county. Attitudes over here will change as well. Over time, as a community, if we both Manning Homes and the residents, CROA, CDD, if we still believe that we don't want a backdoor, then we have to continue to have a conversation with the county. But the back door, from my understanding, is not imminent in the next 5, maybe even more years, 10.
So that sounds like further conversations with us and the county, as well as CDD with the county.
I have a couple of quick questions. How much commercial retail space do you anticipate going in Island Village right now?
15,000 retail square feet.
Would that space be more or less valuable with a back door?
It would be probably more valuable to the retail developer or to the tenant.
So I want to frame this a little differently. I think it's a really easy way for us to frame it that you're just trying really hard to keep a back door out, but the county imposed their will on you and you didn't. You're just, oh, please don't make us, but okay, we will if you force us to. I mean, at some level, I think that we ought to just acknowledge that you have a commercial interest, you're entitled to make a profit, you want to make a profit, and a back door is a profit center possibility, though it might have a negative impact at some point. But that from your standpoint as a developer, having the back door is not a bad thing. In the way that we as a community might feel that having a cut-through celebration that allows traffic to come off of the far south end and come up all the way through creates a whole raft of concerns, and that we are coming at this from two different perspectives. I think we can respect each other's perspective, but I have to tell you that the fantasy that you're just being told what to do by the county is just that, it's a fantasy. And let's not pretend that it's anything other than you're going to make business decisions and we'll do the best we can to work within those decisions within the control that we have. But I really don't like the idea that we're, oh gosh, it could happen sometime down the future. It'll take a long time because the county will take a long time and it'll be here someday. For the people who live here and who will live here, this conversation will come back and they'll say, where were you when all of that happened? And so I just, you're a nice guy. I like you. Do I trust you? Not really.
I think the community came together back when they were talking about that extension coming, possibility of it coming through a portion of celebration, and ultimately, I know a lot of residents here, including myself, we went down to the, was it the FDOT meeting that they had down, was it Poinciana somewhere? A lot of us went down there and spoke up against that, and I think the voice of the community was heard. Now I believe it's going to be an extension off of 429 and down somewhere that way. So I think the resident celebration, if we continue to speak and come together as a group, I think we could have some influence on this.
Ryan? And then Jack.
Go ahead, Jack, if you want. Then I'll go.
Well, Matt, I was going to ask you, where is this backdoor connecting? Is it Old Lake Wilson? Or is it
Ultimately, it would connect to Osceola Polk Line Road,
County Line Road, yeah.
wherever that may be, in terms of, the road is to the south, whether it's east, west, further east.
Is it closer to Old Tampa Highway?
We don't control or even have contract
Well, that's
process
all-
What
that's
CCC owns, that's all.
between where we, where our property interests terminate to Osceola County, Osceola Polk Line
So
Road.
rather than getting into those details, Brian, can you?
Yeah, just to add a couple more comments for the group. Just for the sake of clarity, there are people on our ad hoc committee who believe the back road would actually be a good thing. So we don't have even unanimity on this subject within our group, just for the sake of clarity. We talked, and it's important to this, well, Bennett's up there anyway, we talked about timelines and kind of where we're at. They're hoping to break ground in late November. Holidays are what the holidays are. This project really probably takes strong strength around the first part of January. We've been finishing minutes. David was getting last comments today, so I'd assume they come to the board some point this week, probably a day or two. There is going to be, once the filings are done with the county, there's going to be a 90-day period or so when the county's going to have meetings. Obviously, Mattamy Homes would like, there's going to be a town hall in that period. Mattamy Homes wants the town hall to be a good Q&A back and forth, maybe 30 minutes of presentation with an hour of Q&A. That would be a good time to bring up the back road type stuff so that the county commissioners hear from some of us how important that is. That's probably the time to make your voice heard.
That's probably a January meeting was the estimate,
We were talking about the town hall.
the
in
town hall
January.
meeting. And at that time, we would all see what the layout of Phase One looks like and what the home visuals look like. Because we have not seen that yet. It's not there. So as soon as that's available, we'll be looking at that and then sharing that generally with the larger group, with the larger community, not just this group.
And I would hope that that would not be viewed as an opportunity for a sales presentation.
It is
Right.
not.
Okay.
Right. And it's input. I mean, it's really, the approval would have already occurred by the celebration company, and it's pending county approval. So
Correct.
this is additional input for Mattamy and other approvers to consider.
We talked about, just to answer Jackson's question, though, we talked about for a half hour, it needs to be a nice enough presentation that people can actually get a feel. We had the last meeting, which was a pretty much wide open Q&A. We need really to start this meeting with a half hour of, okay, here are the timelines, here's what the road's really gonna look like, here's what the bridge is really gonna look like. You gotta tell people, this is what phase one's gonna look like. And we talked about, as an example, if they're gonna have a street like Golf Park, then say that. If they're gonna have a street like Teal Street, say that. So people could start to get a feel for what is this, and does it look and feel like celebration?
Yeah, I think my position's pretty clear here. I'm not a fan of this project. I'm not a fan of this build-out. And I don't want, from my standpoint, as one of 7 votes, I don't want CROA to be a promoter of the project. I want us to be doing the best we can to make sure it enhances the entire community. If you do that, then sure, I'm a fan. But so far, what I've seen doesn't make me as excited as maybe some other people on the Nimble committee. Is that fair to say? And so I just don't want us being the patsy that provides the opportunity to help a developer push through something and say, that was okay with us. We all looked at it. It was good. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But right now, I don't think we can say that. I can't say that, at least. I'll say that.
I may say it a little differently. I am excited. I'm excited about Island Village. What I'm not excited about is having to dig up the truth. It's all public record. It's all out there. Let's just work together so we can actually work together. So to pull the card of, well, if you listen to the words that I said in the order that I put them in, I'm not playing a crossword puzzle to go ahead and understand what's going on over there. I want to know exactly, when we ask a question, let's go ahead and work together, because you're not going to want that of anyone else in the community when you need something, when you need design guidelines or whatever the case may be. You don't want to hear well, it's got to be blue, but then when you paint it, it better be light blue and not dark blue. So it's the whole picture. Let's work together. And I think we all are on the same page now.
Anything else on this? More to come, and there'll be questions, I'm sure, that once the minutes are finalized, which is, again, within days.
Again, for the sake of good order, we ain't approving anything. I mean, Bennett is meeting with us, Bennett is providing information, I hear everything you're saying. We're better off getting some information than no information. That is still my position, and I think David's.
Very final item then. I know before the back road thing came up at Commissioner's meeting, you did mention a town hall was coming up very soon.
We had just
So-
spoke about that. Brian had mentioned it
Rough
probably in
January.
January.
I'm sorry, I was looking at that 2013 document you're referring to, but I'll get that.
Roughly, we're thinking
Perfect.
January is the time frame. In other words,
Thank you.
to address Jackson's point, we actually talked about communication in the meeting. We don't want CROA to be the communicator.
Right.
We want to start to get this set up so that with this meeting, we go to a Mattamy Homes website, we can have the celebration, the website or the Friday Flash or anything, have a link to that, because at the end of the day, we can't communicate anything because
We're not them.
we're not them. And
But
so
there-
we've talked about the issue that you're talking about.
And we've raised issues like construction trucks in front of the high school when the school buses are there. We're trying to help Mattamy.
I think there's a
Not
point of
plan-
helping.
not
There's a
plan
point
that.
of helping, and there's a
That's right.
point of working together, and there's a point of doing our required job as representatives of the homeowners of the entire community, which will include Mattamy residents in Island Village. But there's also a very fine line here between doing that and being a shill for a developer and saying, whatever the developer tells us, that's what we're going to put out and what we're going to do. You allowed us to put out information that was not inaccurate, but wasn't accurate.
Understood, and I apologize for that.
And I appreciate
profusely,
that.
well.
Well, I appreciate that.
I apologize for that a lot. And that was my error, because, during our conversations, and they are, Jeffrey, all these ad hoc group members are in there. They're very active conversations, I'll say it like that. And, I am able to provide information that I am able to provide before I could get it past the celebration company. But on that particular point, yes, I made an error in not making it crystal clear that Mattamy is not the only player involved in that decision for a backdoor. Those players include the residents, the county, and if I haven't mentioned it before, and I'll make it even clearer now, the celebration company. I don't know what kind of information that they have or what kind of desires that they have for that backdoor.
I think their PUD makes that pretty clear.
We've had meetings, we've had 2 meetings that were more tense than this. So, but they have been very blunt, but Bennett has dealt with
And I
them
try to be blunt
professionally,
with these folks. I try to be blunt as best as I can with the information that I'm able to provide.
This is
to
the
make sure.
opportunity for us in public to say what needs to be said here. I appreciate the work of the committee, and I appreciate their honesty. I think we're all adult enough that we can say, if you say, I can't tell you that, or I won't tell you that, you said that in the meeting that I was at.
You said that many times to us.
You know,
Yes.
I would appreciate you doing that. But I don't want to get laid out again because we put something in writing that was not really as accurate as it needed to be. And so you've learned, you said that you apologize, great. Don't do it again.
Anything else on this before we move on to financial review? Not about Island Village. Anything else? Oh, thank you. Can we move to?
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Bennett.
Ben. Thanks, Ben.
Brian?
Financial review? Sure. It'll be boring compared to that. Okay, let me go to just some of the big picture points. One of the big issues I've talked about is the Davy invoices and that type of stuff. Susan and I spent some more time today with the financials and that coming up. We have recorded, we being the audit company has recorded $250,000 of additional invoices in 2017. Those are recorded in the audited financials. Those are not totally recorded in our financials. There will be a trip to Arizona, which we will reconcile how we're going to make sure those get recorded. We are going to be cutting a check to Davy for amounts we owed. We are not paying everything because we are amounts we don't think we owe. From a accounting perspective, they need to be booked. We have a payable that we don't want to pay. So there's going to be maybe an argument about that, maybe not. We've talked about it before, so I'm briefing. I have updated this to like the total funds equity at year end, 2.7 million. That reflects those invoices. The amounts rolling forward do not record all those invoices. So there are some mismatches that I don't think will get straightened out till our December 31st financials, since there's going to be a November trip. The rest of our financials are flowing quite nicely on budget, but that could be a material difference to the budget. At some point, we'll have to explain it. It may be in January when we talk about December 31st financials, just from the reality of timing. Steve, can we go to the next page? From the perspective of, from the perspective of our funds, restricted replacement funds, we got $1,194,000 projected for a year end versus $1,001,000 at September 30th, so they're right in line there. Capital improvement, we got $1,002,000. We have a motion later with our budget and everything to take this $1,423,000 and move it into the capital improvement. So there'll be about $2.5 million there. To remind everybody, part of this is restricted with the charter revisions next year. We want to make all of those restricted funds. These are flexible funds, so calling something surplus, I think, is really just a waste of our time, which is why we're doing it here. And then we want to cap contingency at $500,000. It's at $490,000 right now. Contingency is there if we have an insurance deductible in the event of a loss or something else, where really, and we picked $500,000 because it's a pretty material number. And if you look at our hurricane deductible, for example, it's 2% of insured values. Our total insured values are $7 million. So that'd be, we're not going to lose $140,000. We're not going to lose everything in an event. So $500,000 gives us a lot of flexibility to cover 2 hurricanes and then still have for other type of stuff. So that's kind of how we picked that $500 there. From the perspective,
Brian,
yes.
can contingency funds be used only for statutory items or charter restricted items, or is it broad-based? I mean, what is a contingency?
These funds here
I understand.
can be used for anything we want. Capital improvement funds are used for the capital thing,
Right.
but statutorily, we as a board could make the decision to move them over to operating funds if we wanted to.
So by capping contingency at $500,000, that's essentially a paper transaction because those monies could be used for whatever was designated as a contingency if something were to occur.
Right, which is why I want to make the change over here, I hope, with our charter revisions, because if the replacement reserves are proper, then we're talking about whether it's pools, parks, pick your thing, you've done it off of the engineering study to have the proper funds in place to replace roofs and all that other type of stuff that happens. As you make capital improvements, you will need more and more money as we go forward. I mean, if we do the athletic fields, we know we're doing the athletic fields. We know we've done the dog park. We're talking about doing a community center at some point in time. Those are all going to become replacement reserves. At some point in time, this is going to get much smaller as we spend money, because we're going to need not $1.1 million over here. We're going to need $2 million over here, $2.5 or $3 million, because of the reality of where we went as a community. We may make a decision at some point in time, if there's a couple of $1 million in working capital and we've addressed most of the things we want to do, to move $1.5 million over, because we're going to have to fund it as we grow and apply assets. Everything on this right-hand side here, we have the flexibility to do as we make those decisions. Is that fair? And lastly, you've seen we went through at the last meeting. Yeah. We went through this at the last meeting. We got required at 18, required at 19. We're in good shape there. We did not update this for Artisan Park, but we got their September financials. They're in fine shape. And if you bounce down to the very bottom here, on the reserve study, as an example with CROA,
You know, we've got the 1,000,001, we've got a need of 383 and 590 at the end of 19. So, you know, CROA is in good shape. Any questions on the financials? And we've talked a lot about it, but just to recap.
No other questions? Okay, management report?
I will start with the athletic field, since we've been talking a lot about it, and I'll show this is a picture from 2 weeks ago. I'll give a quick update. This is, if you're coming from the library, would be up here, dog park, and then you get to the CDD building. This is the access road that's being cleared here, and then this is the Lot D, former golf course property that was purchased. This has been cleared out. You can see the wetland where we had the credits that were mitigated. Now we're dealing with some muck issues there. It's being demucked, if that's the proper terminology for it. There's also some muck down here that's very clear in this picture. This muck is being spread at the appropriate ratio over the two athletic fields. So if you look in this picture, you'll see when you get here, this is where the athletic field complex begins, parking lot and concession building, and then you'll have field 1, field 2, and then a third field going this way. So this muck is right where the retaining wall is going to be located. So this will be cleared out and spread amongst the two fields here. Any remaining muck that doesn't fit that ratio will be driven off-site. So that's our update. It's a beautiful picture from the drone from Arco. But that's our update as of 2 weeks ago. We'll get another update on Wednesday of where we are with the construction process. I know not last week, but the week before when we were out there, you can see a lot of trenching going on here, and you can see these very large pipes. This is all stormwater drainage, so that's all starting to go in now also. And as far as the meetings are going, we are on track still for completion by April 1st. So any questions on the athletic field complex?
How are we doing on the money from the county?
That's my next update, the interlocal agreement. I worked the phones a little bit today and sent a few more emails to get a update on where we are with it, and the response I got literally right before we started this meeting was Beth Ann Knight, who's the Deputy County Manager for Osceola County, will be in touch with me shortly, sometime this week, to let me know the update on it. Did not give me an update through the email, just that Beth would be in communication, and that she's been working with the legal department to finalize the wording for the interlocal agreement. So I will get back with Beth this week and hopefully have an interlocal agreement to share with you all to start reviewing shortly. And then the last item that I have before we ask Todd in Yellowstone if there's any comments for them is just a quick update on Comcast and cable. We've sent a few notices now out to the community, letting the community know about the end of Comcast leasing the Smart City lines as of January 1st, 2019. Last Friday, there was a message from both Smart City and Comcast that were provided in the Friday Flash. But one of the efforts in Jackson has worked very hard on trying to get the conduits together to communicate and talk a little bit about what can be done to get Comcast or to get fiber lines within those individual condo associations. We had, leading into today, 5 different condo associations. That was Terrace at Celebration, Terrace East and Spring Park Terraces, and then Mirasol in Georgetown that had filled out their discovery paperwork and sent it in to Amy Westwood to at least consider possibility of working with her to negotiate deals for those individual condo associations. Information I've received today is that Mirasol has sent a letter to Comcast that they're canceling the deal completely, so they will not be working with them. And then Annika, the manager at Georgetown, sent an email this afternoon saying that they do not want to be part of this any longer, that they're pulling out of it. So that leaves us down to 3 condo associations. Now, we also know that Carlisle and Siena.
Yeah, one of which has signed a deal or is about to. Terraces of Celebrations.
And then, right, and I think there was an email communication amongst the board, so really that leaves you down to 2 condo associations now. So
Who are those two?
that would be Spring Park Terraces and Terraces East Village. And then Carlisle and Siena are both currently under agreements with Comcast for fiber install.
So if I could just sort of quickly summarize for the board, I think where we're at is that there was not a unanimity of purpose that we could draw across multiple condo associations. Amy Westwood offered her services. The fees were reasonable, but would be far too much for just a couple of condos to be carried, or I think frankly for CROA to carry. The reality is that there will be people who will not have television service on January 1st, in spite of everything else that we send out and all the letters we write and all the Friday flash. I just think that's an inevitability. Every condo association has taken their own path to resolve this problem. I can't think of any two that have written the same deal, so they're all unique, just as I think individual homeowners have unique deals. I think there will be some individual homeowners who will be surprised to find out that they didn't run, even though the fiber was out there, they didn't run it into their homes, and they won't have service in January if they don't take advantage of this. So on the whole, Comcast has not been a great partner. They were difficult to work with at best. Smart City, indicated, I think, their disappointment in the letter that they sent out, and I'll let that letter speak for itself. Going forward, I think the one positive maybe that we can pull out of this is that there is a need and a value to bringing together representatives of the condo associations on a regular basis under the umbrella of CROA to talk about issues of common concern.
How do you get them to come to a meeting, though?
You invite them, and you just keep inviting them. I mean, I think that, we've got some condo associations, obviously, here in Celebration that don't want to participate, don't want anything to do with the rest of the community. But boards change, elections happen, personalities change, and those condos may suddenly show up at our doorstep. I think we have to keep recognizing that 38% of our residents in CROA live in condominiums. And we can no more ignore them than we would ignore people in service areas or single-family homes. And so my desire would be that we would set up a continuing task force or group or committee, I don't know what the right language would be, to engage with condos on a regular basis to ask what's going on in your world, what do you want to see, what can we do, how can CROA help you? I think that a large part of the challenge we faced with Comcast is a residue of 3 or 4 years ago and hard feelings about what happened and not great communication either direction. And I think we have an opportunity to improve that. I think in spite of all the challenges that we've been through recently, we've at least gotten people in the room. We've gotten them talking or yelling occasionally, but at least we're doing something. So I would like to ask the board to authorize a quarterly condominium management gathering. I wish I had a better, more articulate way to do that.
If you make the motion, I will second that.
That's my motion.
That's it. It's needed.
That's an okay name.
Attended by whom?
Who's the
Gathering. Attended by
who are the
whom?
invitees?
We would invite the representatives of the condos. It's different in every condo. In some of the condos, it's a manager. In some, it's a resident who's a board president or a board member. They have their own opportunity to decide who they want to send, or multiple people. I think the point is we're asking for leadership from a condo to come, whatever, however they define that.
Are you talking about a full board noticed meeting, or are you talking about representatives
No.
from CROA meeting?
I
with
think a
them?
representative from CROA meeting with them to, in an informal setting like this, to just talk through whatever's going on, just as we would do with other committees, like a technology committee or a recreation committee or others. This is a way for that group of people to inform us through a liaison what's important to them.
I know you and Steve, you guys did a good job trying to bring those condo associations together to get something worked out with Comcast. You made a great effort at it, and some of it worked, some of it didn't, but we made an effort. You made a try. So.
Yeah.
Good job.
And again, they all, I think you said that earlier, they all have different needs.
Yeah.
And different criteria and different operating structures. So, but the idea of, which I think we have a motion and we have a second from Kevin, to convene on a quarterly basis.
Under Jackson's direction? Under Jackson's direction?
Under Jackson's
Or, I mean, who's running with this?
I will jump right in
If we're
with
going
you.
to pass a motion, what
I'll jump right
are
in
we
with you.
passing?
We need
That's all
any
I'm
further
asking.
discussion on this?
I mean, I think those residents, I need to know they were all always welcome to come to a meeting. And
Always.
that's where everyone else is
Yeah.
represented.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I don't know if this is something we want to discuss further.
Feel we need to discuss it further?
Jackson, I would ask, would you consider service areas as well as part of this?
I think it would be great. I mean, we're going to come to talk about service areas later tonight with the budgets. There are some additional challenges because service areas have not, as I understand it, always, or all of them, or very few of them actually, have elected leadership organizations. I think Debbie's point is a really good one. Everyone is invited, obviously, to all of these meetings, but I think there is a different level of leadership that we should be talking to, and if a service area has leadership, we could certainly invite them into those discussions.
But I think when you talk about addressing your problem here, which is the condo associations, their uniqueness of those associations are they do have their own boards and their own managers. I think you're mixing, it's apples and oranges, really. So if we're gonna do something like that, it makes more, and Susan both have already begun twice-a-year meetings with the service areas and inviting them all to attend. And if there's a need for more, we can certainly address that. But I think for the purpose of what you're trying to accomplish here tonight, that it probably should stick with the condo associations. And then the only other thing I'd like to ask to modify the motion as an action item and call it 1A or action item A, just so that it's underneath the action item and not underneath the management report.
Okay. Yes, Suzanne, what kind of attendance do you get from those service area meetings? You get very good attendance? Just curious,
So when we had them a year ago, I would say there was a lot of people. A lot of people had a lot to say, the first couple. These last two, not as many people showed up. But I would say, I don't know, 10%?
Maybe. It depends on the service area. There are some service areas, like Blue Sage, where they have 6 people and there's 12 units there. Spring Lake, townhomes and gardens always come out because they have some challenges that are different than everyone else. And
We had some
others,
service
there
areas
are
where
none.
people just didn't show up. But but those service areas don't have a lot of communication complaints, so that might just be a really happy group of people.
yeah, maybe that's why they don't show up, they're happy.
We definitely want to encourage communication, but the reality is when there's nothing exciting going on, we don't get a big turnout.
And we offer them the option of contacting Susanna anytime, contacting Town Hall anytime they have concerns. And she gets a lot of emails, so they are contacting us. They just don't come to the meetings because their issues are being resolved through other
Maybe we'd be
means.
muddying the waters if we included both groups together, maybe.
I think if we stay with the condos for now,
Yeah.
that would be great.
And just to clarify, it sounded like in the motion, or in your prior discussion before the motion, that the attendee would be an identified person, and we've stated there's management and there's elected personnel. So I would
It
offer
could
that
be-
it should be, the invitation goes to both.
We certainly will invite any contacts that we have for the condos. Right now, it's the managers, though, and we can encourage those managers to share board members, but we haven't been successful with that up to this
But
point.
just to try, and I know that changes, it's a moving target.
Do we need do we need to vote on this?
I don't think so, but
I
I
don't
think
we
we
just
formalize
convene-
it, you most certainly can. I mean, if you want to make sure that it's
I don't think we need to vote, I'm just.
You're
just a
not
point.
spending any money on this, I think it's just.
It's a convening and identifying what shared concerns and issues are.
Yeah.
And how can we be
As
helpful
long as
moving
it's in the
forward?
minutes, and so there's no question later that this is the intent of the board. that'd be
Yeah,
great.
I mean,
That's fine. Then we don't have to have it as an action item. Okay. Anything else under management report?
Not unless there's any questions for Yellowstone.
I do, but
Tom, would you like to come up?
was there any follow-up? I saw, that again, on the board workshop, on the dumpster proposal. Was that to be done by today for this board meeting?
I don't believe so.
Okay, so that's going to be another follow-on item?
I'm not ready to talk about that. I'm not ready to talk about that.
Okay, okay.
I'll be quick, but let me revert back to the whole snow conversation. Don't wish for a whole bunch of snow to start falling on that day, because that'll ruin the landscape, so just want to put that out there. You'll notice in the landscape report forms that there was some deadlines for Yellowstone to meet for turf replacement. I'm happy to say that they met that deadline, ahead of schedule. They replaced turf on their own dime at Norfolk due to mole cricket activity. They also did Nadina and Spring Park area, I believe. Who? Oh, Reserve Park, yeah, Zoysia at Reserve Park, which is all taken well and looks quite good. The landscape, the turf condition at the sports fields has improved greatly over the past 3 to 4 months. It was a little struggle there at the beginning of the year, but they've all come together. It's rooted in, all the gaps are gone, so we're happy about that. You'll also see here in the next couple of weeks, they'll be overseeding with ryegrass on the Bermuda areas. There's a few select spots that we're not going to put down ryegrass, so they can treat for certain weeds such as tropical signal grass, which is very invasive and hard to control. So if you spray for tropical signal grass, you kill your ryegrass, so we're just not going to put it out there. But areas that are high visibility, such as in front of Heritage Hall and the sports fields here, will all have ryegrass. David, you said you had a couple questions?
So on your grading sheet,
Mhm.
are all of those Yellowstone items?
Yes,
Or-
on my grading sheet, yes, those are all
Okay.
Yellowstone.
I noticed there was not one on the dog park. Can there be a grading sheet on the dog park?
There is, I'm not sure
Was
why
there
it's
one?
not. I'm not.
I did not see it.
Maybe it's not in there, so
Okay.
I will double check.
Double check that,
Forward
okay.
it to y'all.
So
There
the
should have
question
been
is,
one in there.
who does the dog park?
Yellowstone does.
So then the comment is, observing the new turf replacement there, major trip hazard. And if that's the quality of replacement, it looks like tiles like here that are all lopsided, and major trip hazard for humans and animals.
Well, I did walk that the day that they had sodded. What you're seeing is the thickness of the sod that comes out of the fields. They can't cut it as short as the turf is existing, so they'll just have to whittle away at it, because you never cut more than a third of the grass blade off at one swoop. So they'll get it brought down to that. It'll mend. Am I correct with saying
Will
that?
it'll manage out? I'm not a
Yes.
turf person.
It will. It'll mend
I
together.
had new turf laid at my home that was different widths, and it was 6, 7, 8 weeks ago, and it's now, after cutting, started to get all the same.
I mean, it just looks, it's like, this is embarrassing.
It
That's how I
does look
felt.
unusual. It's, but sod coming out of the field compared to what's existing always looks a little different. I did run my foot across all the areas, well, not all areas, but trip hazard areas, and you could feel that the dirt is the same height on both sides. It's the thickness of the turf.
I mean, there were places that was dirt and sand showing, and then grass right next to it, all with where they're supposed to be sod.
Yeah, so they'll take a look at that and
Okay.
we'll make sure it's all level and rolled if we have to.
And then I understand there were weeds there last week, and they sprayed with Roundup, according to the service person. Is that
That's
canine friendly?
Would you guys like to speak on that?
Roundup's about as safe as it gets.
It's a what?
Roundup, it's about as safe as it gets. And I read the email. I think the resident had the impression we treated the whole place from Roundup, and his dog was rolling around in it. Roundup is just spot spraying around tree rings and the weeds are on the outside. As soon as it's dry on the plant, nobody can pick it up. It would have to be within 2 or 3 minutes of spraying it that a dog could actually pick anything up. And if it picked it up, what's the risk to the dog? I think it's pretty minimal, but it wasn't a blanket treatment or anything like that. If we do blanket treatments, and we have, close the dog park, wait till everything dries. It might be a whole day. But Roundup's just a
And
spot
then how-
spray here and there.
And how do we communicate to residents that that's going to happen? I know Thursdays is,
Thursday's our service day for mowing.
but this was done on Wednesday.
Correct. Todd and I spoke about it, and it was probably, it was a matter of, there are weeds, we need to get them taken care of.
I did the complaint. I posted 5 or 6 cell service complaints.
You were
Some of the
not-
weeds were this tall.
You were not incorrect on any of that. And of course, when I looked, we had to take care of it immediately. So moving forward, it's just a matter of better planning, better execution, and Thursday is our day for the dog park. So if we need to get in there on a day like that, I will let Todd know ahead of time. But it was a matter of the horses in the ditch, let's get them out of the ditch right now.
Is there a way with our newly approved key card system that those who are registered for the dog park can be sent an email blast? If something like that, if we do need to take care of something, can we do an immediate communication to the 1,100 people? Do we have that capability?
Well, I think the problem needs to be addressed by, we shouldn't get to that issue where the emergency
We shouldn't.
constitutes
We shouldn't.
something of that nature. I mean, there's accountability. I mean, we have to hold the landscaping company accountable to making sure this happens. I think it's pretty loud and clear to them what that message is, that needs to get done quickly. And we got to keep the spraying, even if it does have a minimal effect, we got to keep it isolated to the
Or
day
just
that we
wait till
agree to.
Thursday, not let it happen, and then wait till Thursday when people know dog park will be closed, or maybe open, the services are happening. Good.
Any other questions?
I don't have anything else?
The only thing you asked about the dumpsters, during the board workshop, the board agreed by October 29th, you would have comments back. So if we just want to get the comments shared amongst the board members, that we
Okay.
can kind of consolidate those
Okay.
over the next day or two.
Thank you, Walt.
Thanks.
Brian, is this the point that you want to talk about pickleball and tennis courts?
Right. The conversation was brought up by the pickleball team about fixing up the tennis courts. Don sent what I thought was a great email to the board, where he said, you know, if we're gonna fix it up for the school system, can we move the fence back and get more parking? We had agreed that we wanted to get through some of the Parks and Rec master plan thing, but I thought it would be wise on our part to at least get Steve or the appropriate parties talking to the school system to find out if this is something they would even be interested in. The school could come back and say, no, you can't have the tennis courts, you can't fix them up. The school could say, well, if you fix them up, we want it 12 hours a day. The school could say, this is a great idea, this is a horrible idea. I just thought, you know, as we're getting ready to start down this path, and this is one of those things that's out there, it'd be nice to know is this relevant or not. And if Steve's the appropriate person, or whoever the appropriate person is, I think it'd be good to at least start a conversation to find out if this is even an option that's relevant. That's what I was gonna bring up.
I can tell you through our conversations of renewing the facility usage agreement, that was an option that we asked them about, and they were agreeable to that. But there is a process through the school board for how you start working on this stuff, and it's a lengthy process. So if we would want to start that, that's filling out the paperwork and things that need to be done to do that.
In that same paperwork, what my thought was, is to get something in return for spending $150-some thousand on resurfacing those tennis courts over there and adding LED lighting. Could we possibly, in exchange for that expenditure, get some additional parking, maybe move this fence line here back maybe one row or two rows, and give town hall some additional parking access, move the gate back just so it's open to this side. They may have to do some rerouting from that entrance down there around one of the aisles there, but I think if we could get at least one or two of those rows there, that would really help us, the people here, where they wouldn't have to park in the streets. And some, even for the sports that go on here in the passive field, maybe they could, go back there and have some parking as well.
Are you talking about just the parking lot or adding the length of the entire parking area, or just our parking lot?
The entrance here, when you come in, if you, that
Just to the
gate
right.
to the schoolyard,
Just to the
if you
right.
move that fence back and give us a couple of those parking rows that are there, and just move the whole fence line back and
The
leave it.
entire fence?
Yeah, well, yeah.
All the way to,
Well, I don't know if we'd need the whole thing, but I mean, at least,
isn't it their bus route?
well, that's what I mean, you'd have to, that route that comes through off of the road over there, they would just come in and come down the next aisle instead of coming down this aisle.
So I really like Vaughn's recommendation, and my request from the board is, let's authorize the start of the conversation so that we don't pass a master plan and then find out that we're making everybody mad because you gotta start a 6-month process. And have a talk with the school board, find out what they will even listen to so that we know.
Well, I probably should start with Principal Mannion, and then ask them to bring the facilities folks as part of that initial conversation. So are any of the board members interested in attending that meeting with me?
I'd like to be involved in it.
Okay.
I'm happy with Vaughn being the representative,
Good.
as everybody else is.
Is that okay? Good. Thank you. We're ready to move to action items.
Could we take a 5-minute?
You want to do a 5-minute break? Let's do a 5-minute break. Thank you. Thanks for calling it. We could have finished these in a few minutes. Yeah, right.
Right here, this fence, back it up and give us maybe this row. Well, you could block this one, and then move the gate here. And so they would come in here, they would just have to come, they just reroute it to a different route.
Yeah, but they would lose all that parking.
Well, yeah, I mean, they lose what we would, nobody uses it. Down the center, we could do that. It's a good idea. No, I mean, yeah, I mean, that would be good, if we could get these spaces.
That's right down the center of the road.
Yeah. And then the bus could just come in and just go down here. Instead, they just come around, rather than going down this way. They'd still have their gate here. You'd move the gate.
Let me ask you a question. What about keeping these spaces, these parking spaces here for pickleball?
We could do that. We could ask for that.
And just take the gate structure down to here like that.
Remember, if you put a gate there, then the kids can't go in and use the facilities.
Well, they would have
They
access.
have access to it, yeah.
Yeah, they'd have access during the day. But I'm just saying, we don't have a parking area for this pickleball.
I would just like get something in return for spending $150,000.
You spent a lot more than that already.
Well, whatever, you know, it happens to be.
You're watering their grass and you're putting lights in their fence.
Well, no, I mean in addition, I mean, I just don't want to give away money,
I
you
understand.
know. But yeah, we can work anything out. I mean, I just would like to get some extra money.
Now, my only thought of this is, I have a hesitancy about doing this because there's a talk about redoing this whole thing and reconfiguring this whole thing to provide, you know, a field over here, three baseball fields, I believe it was, and moving that parking lot in a different area too.
Well, in exchange though, what we could do is say whatever the new parking lot is, we would like to have some space.
It was our master plan was to redo this Jeffrey design.
I don't know where that money would come from to do that.
I don't remember that much about it. All I remember was that all this stuff had changed.
It all changed.
They have to look at it all.
Thank you.
Because now we did that original master plan, that wasn't the best one.
I think government has certain protections for parks. It could be for at least a week. Even if we pay to move the fence, at least we would have something for 5-10 years. Homeowner association parks, I think, maybe. I have to go back and look at the. Did you? Differently.
Yeah, yeah.
Hey, just so you know, when we discuss those bills, we did discuss bleachers, we discussed boat storage, we discussed the gopher. we discussed-
I keep riding by them and
Same
they just,
thing, and then I read
weeds are
that.
coming up, they look like crap. It's really nice, whole area along there. But yeah, like Jack was saying, you know, even if we got those parking spaces along the course.
Just live with it.
We would get something for the money, I mean, let's get something. Yeah, for the exchange, yeah,
You can restrict dogs from going in the toilets as long as they're not, service animals, which nowadays,
Ready?
you have a service squirrel.
5 minutes.
Is up.
Okay, we are resumed. No, we're missing. I just saw, oh.
They're just
They're
taking back
they're
up
coffee.
again for
We're
a
ready.
delivery.
All right, we're resuming. Action item 1, motion to approve the 2017 CROA audit as prepared by Glickstein, Laval, and Harris.
Did you
Or
skip number
Harris.
one?
That is one.
Yeah, that's item 1?
Oh, I'm sorry, I apologize.
Did I make a comment on that before we talk?
Can we have a motion and then have a comment?
Motion to approve?
Thank you, Debbie.
I'll second it.
Yeah.
Second for Vaughn for discussion purposes?
Brian had a comment too.
Okay.
I just want to make sure when we talk about audits that, I just want to ask Brian, being our treasurer and an accountant and all that kind of stuff, to make sure he's seen this and in adequate time and approves of what's written in that report.
Thank you, Vaughn.
Absolutely.
I think that needs to come, at least through Brian.
So we have if you will, a sign-off or a...
Well, I don't know, I mean,
review or
I'll leave that up to him, but I just want to make sure
Eyes on?
he's seen it and he's familiar with it and confident that it's,
And I've met with the accountants as well, going through the process.
I think that the treasurer, whoever the treasurer is, should see the audit report before the audit report is issued. I think the treasurer should have the opportunity to have a conversation with the external auditor.
Sounds good
I
procedure.
received the CJC audit in July. I actually reviewed it, and I forwarded it to the entire board saying it looked fine, but I gave it to everybody for their opinion. I read the CROA one this weekend. I sent an email to the entire board yesterday. Susan and I talked about it today. Something went wrong with email transmission, but next time, send me a text. We're late in the year. Susan and I talked about some of the issues that I brought up yesterday. They're more wording type issues. There were wording errors last year. I'm personally of the opinion, we know that this audit firm has had a lot of hours in. I think they wanted to get it done. They got it done. I think, as I mentioned earlier, the 250 got booked. So I think we roll forward. I question whether we probably should. We had an old audit firm that we used, and I question whether we should have ever changed for them, because the advantage, I know none of the history, so I can make a totally innocent comment here. I don't know the politics, and I don't care what they were. But we had an old audit firm. They knew the place well, and there's a real advantage to that. I don't worry about audit firms being politicians. I don't worry about audit firms being manipulative. They go to jail, they get sued if they do stuff like that, so they're actually very careful about that. I would personally be of the opinion that we would be wise to go back to the old audit firm sooner rather than later if they have a competitive bid, because their financial quote was very competitive based on what we had before, and they know us, and there's real advantages into that when you talk about wording and stuff like that. And I'm not trying to misalign the current audit firm at all, but when you take over something as complicated as CROA here, which is huge, and you don't know the history, and you start having staff accountants eat hours and stuff like that, it's just probably not wisdom.
Didn't we put into the budget a revised amount for an auditor?
We did for this year, for 2018. I mean, I asked Susan and Steve today on the phone, because we had a phone conversation today, and I asked them if we could switch auditors this year if we wanted to. They didn't know the answer to that question. To the
Why
old
did we
auditor.
switch? Did we go low bid or what?
We did. I don't know
Yes?
what we did.
Yes, we did.
I think that there was a conversation amongst the board about getting a new set of eyes on the
I think
financials.
that was the orientation.
But a new set of eyes with external auditors is not an advantage. I actually think it's a disadvantage, and that's my honest opinion. And I've dealt with audit firms my entire professional career. So it's like we learned with roofers. Sometimes having the chiefest roofer does not save you money. So you've heard I would accept this audit report. What I've heard on the comments and stuff like that is really not a big deal. I think we have the exposure that I talked about earlier, which is not it's more of a what period you book it in exposure with the 250 and stuff like that. We're financially strong and everything. We need to get it fixed going forward. And that will, Susan and I talked about it, the trip to Arizona, it gets fixed so that we figure out exactly where it gets booked, and Arizona's got it booked and it rolls forward properly. On the audit side, you've heard my opinion.
I do have one question about the audit itself. the emphasis of matter clause at the end that says that it was outside the scope to look at future major repairs and replacements. Is that standard language? Is there anything there that we need to be concerned about? Is this just normal boilerplate?
I consider that normal boilerplate type stuff. An audit firm is always going to have 12 million qualifiers to make sure that you can't sue them for complete incompetence. And they don't know replacement cost type stuff, so without us having them do a tremendous amount of work and paying for it.
So there are no notes in, I mean, as I read it, I didn't see any notes or any hidden Mickeys that said.
I saw nothing in it that caused me concern. And in the email, I wrote about some stuff that I wasn't sure was right. I would have worded it differently, but that's style, and I'll just leave it.
Motion and a second. All right.
Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And just two follow-ons that I think were highlighted for this, for management. Treasurer review, making that systematic, and then taking a look, I know you're pursuing that now, for the 2018 audit, potential of changing firms, whether that's a board action or how that moves. But looking at that as an option.
Yeah, we approved an engagement letter at the last meeting, I believe, and
Okay.
it's been signed and submitted, so we have to determine whether we can get out of that.
Or the intent
Well,
in the
you got two
future.
questions. Can you get out, and does a new firm want to let you in? Right now, it's a short hour at the end of the year.
So item 2, motion to suspend voting rights of owners delinquent over 90 days with assessments, fines, or other monetary obligations in excess of $100 per Florida statute 720.35.40.
So moved.
Thank you, Glenn. Second from Jack. Any discussion? Okay, call the question. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 3, motion to approve the proposed 2019 CROA budget with an annual assessment of $949.43. Motion?
So moved?
Thank you from Brian.
Second.
Second from Jackson. We've had lots of discussions on this, countless hours, full-day workshop.
This is our 2 or 3%.
This was the 2% increase?
And I only received one email from the letters that we sent out, and was just asking about farmer's market and increase in water, electricity due to the, excuse me, due to the athletic field complex, and I answered that question. That was
And
the
you
only
sent that out
email.
maybe 2 weeks ago, 3
It
weeks
was
ago?
about 2 weeks ago, I believe.
Okay.
And I've monitored the front porch, I've monitored the back porch,
I'm surprised.
no one said anything. I think we did a pretty good job.
I think last year was the first year of an increase over maybe 8 years?
I'll add to that compliment. You all did a wonderful job in the 4 years that I've been doing these. This was the year that it's run the smoothest up to this point, so good job with the budget this year.
Thank you.
Well, I think the materials you provided us were more forthcoming and more easily understood, rather than last year was like 20 or 30 or 40 tabs.
Yeah.
Or more, do you remember?
Tab and tab and tab. I think the process, the way that we went about it this year, it works, it's successful. We need to continue to utilize that as we move forward.
Well, I will say Artisan Park is using this as their model going forward. So I think part of what we've been trying to do is to model certain kinds of activities and behaviors and approaches, and I think we're starting to see the fruits of that. So thank you very much, Brian, for leading the way.
Any further discussion on this?
Call the question.
Call the question. Thank you, Jack. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 4, motion to combine surplus reserves with capital improvement reserve funds. And Brian noted that a few minutes ago.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Brian. Vaughn seconding. Any discussion? We've discussed that numerous times also. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Motion to approve the proposed 2019 CJC budget.
So move.
Thank you, Jack.
Second.
Second from Brian. Discussion. Dovetails with the CROA budget, but part of that same discussion that we've had over the months.
Call the question.
Call the question. Thank you, Jack.
I'm going to mention one thing, and it's ahead of my nay that I'm going to put through, and I still don't feel comfortable with CJC. So that way we know ahead of time, everybody knows my feelings on it, and the third versus a quarter and everything else that's gone on with that we're going to look into in 2019.
The percentage
Yes.
amount. Yeah, okay. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
One nay.
I had asked the question, since these are before we go off of our budget stuff, about the capping the contingency at 500,000. Do we need to, because we don't have a resolution there, and I asked in an email if we needed one. I thought we did.
Yes, I absolutely feel like we need one. For the same reason that we're now struggling with what happened 2 and 3 years ago. There's really not a clear record on some things, and I think on something like this, there should be a clear record that says this is where the board came out, and a new board would have to vote to overturn that. So in my mind, it's an absolute.
Right, and I've got that proposed resolution that we talked about. It's at the attorney's office, our general counsel's office, and I should have something back by the 2nd, this coming Friday, that I'll forward to you immediately.
So we don't have the attorneys weigh in yet, is that correct?
They're writing the resolution, drafting it for us so that you can read it based on, Brian had said, we want to cap
Right.
contingency.
We had
and
several
this.
things.
Yeah.
So do we need any action?
I'm
on it?
willing to wait
Let's wait on
another
that.
meeting.
Okay.
Just, we know it's coming. That's
Okay.
all, then I'm happy with that.
Okay, so we will get that in the record. Item 6, motion to approve 13 proposed 2019 service area budgets as detailed in the supplemental action items.
So moved.
Second.
That was Brian, and Jack second, and
Okay.
Jackson.
Well, I want to identify 3 of those service area budgets for a separate discussion and approval, if we could. I'd like to take item 6A, which is Savannah Square, and I believe, help me out, Susanna, here, I think it's 6D for North Village,
Yes.
and
6F.
6F
6F
for South
F.
Village.
for South Village, right. And I'd like to separate these out for just a moment, vote on the others, and then come back to those 3 if we could.
Okay with that, with the,
I'll amend the motion.
thank you,
Second amendment.
thank you. So we have the motion, do you have that, Rachel? A, D, and F. And so we're gonna, let's deal with the others. B, E, G, H, I, et cetera, through P. Any discussion on those? I know those were also discussed at the workshop. Any further discussion on those, and we'll come back to the 3? Okay, we'll call the question. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So those, motion passes. Now let's go back to A, D, and F. Do you want to separate those, or the same
No.
package?
Same package.
Okay,
I would move to approve them, we'll just start there. I'll move to approve A, D, and F.
I'll second that.
so we
As
have,
is, Jackson?
Yeah.
As is, or?
Well, just for the discussion.
Just so we can start the discussion.
It's a motion to approve them.
Motion to
Okay,
approve.
Second.
so Jackson and Kevin.
Brian.
Oh,
No, it was Kevin.
Kevin was the second, I thought.
Kevin said it.
We're all jumping in.
matter.
It's all
No,
same.
A, D, and F.
Okay, but he said D and F, are you including A now?
A, D, and
A,
F.
D, and F.
A, D, and F.
A, D, and F.
Motion to approve A, D, and F. Jackson, followed by Kevin.
So now,
Discussion.
the reason I asked for these 3 to be separated is that these are 3 of the areas that are involved with construction defect litigation. And while there are certain restrictions on what we can say in an open meeting, I think what we can say fairly is that in the budgets for those 3 service areas, Susanna has put in a line item for legal fees, which amounts to $400 per month per service area, or $4,800 per year. It is, that may be a correct number. It is also possible that that number will be wildly too low. I think it's unlikely to be too high, but it certainly could be too low depending on what happens. I think it's important that we approve the budget and set up that line item so that there is something being taken from each of those service areas to help begin the process of dealing with fees that might be associated with litigation. On the other hand, I think we have an obligation to let the residents in those service areas know that we do not know what this amount will ultimately be, and therefore this budget is not a guarantee of those fees or an amount certain. It is simply a starting point. And so I've asked management to draft a letter following what I hope will be our approval tonight, that they could then send to the board for review and on to the service area residents in those 3 affected areas, so that they understand that there is an assessment. As part of their assessments, there are legal fees, but there is the possibility that there may be additional fees at a future point. Is that,
Yes.
am I capturing that essence of it?
So just to recap, approve as is with a letter going out, as we send a postcard or a notice that here's the approved budget and the approved assessment amount, just notifying that that number could increase.
Okay.
I think we would do a separate letter going via
Just to
email
those.
blast
Right.
and via mail to those residents,
I
kind of
understand.
explain
The engineering study starts this week, correct?
the drone, yes.
Yes. There's 2 parts to it. You can tell. That's what he did.
Oh, no, well, there's the drone that'll be flying over the 3 service areas, looking at the roofs, taking pictures. Then they're going to work, the second half will be next week, working with the roofer to do some samples on the roof. And based on what they decide to remove and look at, performance will be there to repair or do any kind of sampling or work with them. So we're waiting to see what performance roofing schedule is so that they can coordinate the days that they're gonna do that. The goal is next week, but we're waiting on the 2 of them to coordinate. So when we find out that day, we will let everybody know.
I don't disagree, Jackson.
Sorry.
I don't disagree with what you're proposing. I would like the letter to say the engineering study and the drones and everything is starting right now. We will continue this conversation. So I don't want somebody saying, okay, you gave me this, and now you're gonna tell me something in 9 months. I wanna say, okay, this is happening now, and conversation will ensue as we get facts back from the engineering study. When are we expecting facts back?
Yeah.
You know, I think it's going to be up to us to request a deadline. As you know, it's been moving a little bit slower a lot slower than everyone would like to. We've been waiting on the date for it to start for a few months. So I would imagine that it'll take them a few weeks to generate that report. Hopefully not longer than that, but we'll speak with them and try to set up a firm deadline that we're requiring it. The sooner the better.
And we would go into executive session then to review
Yes.
those reports, correct?
Yeah, I would,
Yes.
I mean, so I'd like something in the letter that says, hey, we're gonna do that, we're gonna monitor this. I mean, we need to be pushing this, because there's many issues here tied together, so I don't want somebody saying, oh, you're just gonna zap. The 4,800 is gonna go to 48,000 in 9 months, and we're not gonna tell you anything, is not the message I want out there. So
Correct.
that's what I'm trying to say, is we're gonna actively manage this with you, if the board agrees.
Can we put a date in the letter that says we have asked for the engineering study by?
I
mean,
think we
you
can
said 2
certainly
weeks.
put-
You're saying you hope by the end of next week, which would be November 10th, so 2 weeks from that is,
I think we can certainly put in a date that we're requesting.
we're asking for
I don't
it,
wanna
and
put any
the board will meet
guarantees.
within
Right.
1 week, or whatever the appropriate time, of receipt of that. We can
Sure.
be, like to Brian's point, we
relay
can
what
be
we're
directive and
requesting.
clear.
I have one question. Why is it that we're going about it this way as opposed to a special assessment? You guys might be able to help me out. Because by putting, they're used to a $500 in their budget towards the legal and professional, and now that's skyrocketing to $4,800. Now, in future years down the road, that is now their budget, and that $4,800 may be under legal, it may go somewhere else, maybe roof repairs, and that's where we're paying. Is it the wisest to go through, especially when we're sending this explanation out, to go ahead and build it into the budget, or do we do a special assessment for legal?
Well, we don't know what that special assessment would be until we
Right
get
now,
the
it's 4,800, it's
Well,
what you're putting.
That's not a special assessment, that's incorporating some
Right.
money into their budget, which honestly, we adjusted some different areas so that those 3 didn't have this crazy general assessment increase. But until we get that report back, which is gonna estimate how much it will cost to fix these roofs, we can't determine what that special assessment would be.
Well,
So
it's-
to jump ahead to that point, you know, like Jackson said, we're putting a placeholder at the moment for 4,800 to get us started on this road for next year. You know, after the engineer report gets done and we get the results back, we should have a number, you know, before the end of the year, and that's gonna tell us what our next step is and what's our financial
Yeah.
situation
I
gonna
guess
be like.
Just going through this with Town Center, I mean, if I was over this one, I would go special assessment.
But how much would you do?
I would do the same number you're doing right now. If you're doing 4,800, if you want to go ahead and bump it up a little bit, we don't really know.
Are you talking about
But then
just
you'd have
changing
to
the
do
name of
another
the
one
line
later
item
possibly.
from?
You'd have to do like two
Take it out
special
of your regular
assessments.
annual.
Can I ask Kevin, just to try and make sure we're addressing the problem that you're looking at here? Is it because you think if there's 4,800 in there now, we'll continue finding new ways to spend $4,800?
Let's
Because we
say-
can come back next year, if
And drop
it's
it.
all paid for, we can come back and remove that amount
Yes.
and bring it
But
back
is
down
this
to where it
being
was.
put in there with the expectation that it's going to remain at a high number, and perhaps it's not going to go towards legal, but towards other
No.
repairs?
I thought what you had done was you had actually worked with each area to come up with the budget, had walked them through why you were putting the legal in to get them comfortable, and they have an expectation it'll go away when this is settled.
At what point? That's why I'm saying I don't know why it wouldn't have been
We
a
incorporated,
special as opposed to just building
so-
it into your budget.
Okay, so when we're doing the budgets, we look at all the different areas that we need to spend money in and based on what we spent the year prior. Obviously, we've spent quite a bit of money on legal services so far for this construction defect. So we placed, like Jack said, a placeholder, a certain amount of money to get us started next year. We put that in the letter saying we've added some legal expenses in there. We send legal weekly updates explaining where we are in the process. Obviously, we haven't gotten to the part where we've sued or we've pursued litigation for a certain amount. You know, the attorney would do that, or even the insurance carrier. So I think the letter and what you're saying is communicating, you know, we don't know what this money's gonna be in the long run is a great idea, and I think that's a good communication to give to the residents. We could, if what Kevin's saying, if we were to do it separate and do a special assessment, then we might have to do another one down the road. And I think it's better to at least communicate to homeowners that, you know, this hasn't jacked up your assessment that much right now. This is just an item. But there may be something down the road as opposed to doing a special assessment now and then a special assessment later on down the line.
Well, and let me just also say, it is a best practice in community association management from a homeowner association standpoint to not necessarily lower and have an expectation of assessments having slight cost of living increases. This is a different beast altogether, though. Very highly accountable and diligent homeowners within these smaller service areas. And they come back and they ask questions about each line item. Why is it still 4,800 if our litigation's completed? I don't think that would be our mentality or mindset. It's a zero-based budget mentality for these service areas. And if there's not a need for the legal fees to be that high, we'll reduce them back down to where they were before.
Yes.
Could we mention it in the letter that after this is done, the legal aspect of it, that the assessment could be
The
revisited?
monthly budget, yes?
Yeah, and it certainly
Yeah.
can be
It could go
revisited
up, it
for-
could go
for
down,
next
'cause
year.
it
Yeah,
could-
I mean, you just never know
Just
what
let 'em know.
the next year brings. and-
Let me do a
But also
follow-up
as a
question.
communication point, Brian brought this up, when we had the budget meetings, it was brought up. So if homeowners had questions about that money, it was discussed.
Just
And
as a
you can
follow-up
put it in-
question, does this, in your experience, through CAI, whatever that may be, will this affect the property values of these units if an owner is looking to qualify for a mortgage to purchase it, when these dues jump up the way they do? How is that going to affect the owner individually? If this is just a one-time thing, that's what a special assessment typically is. So if we're only looking at doing this one time, I'm just having a hard time making it, a budget is meant for, yes, that first year, but it's also an expectation that this is something you'll have moving forward.
How much did it go up? How much did
Percentage-wise.
6A go up to 401? How much was it before? I didn't see any prior numbers in here, so I wasn't sure of the increase.
6A went up 3.5%.
What was it before, number-wise? From
It was, well, it's up to 401.99.
and before,
And-
before the 48?
Back out the 3 point.
Yeah, I've got to back out the 3.5.
Oh.
$3.90.
$14.
Yeah, it was around 390. I want to say it was 389 and some change.
So $12, I don't know if that'd be.
As long as
I think-
everybody's comfortable with all that.
This is all useful, but I also want to be on the record as saying, it ain't gonna happen. I mean, you know, when Brian gets up here and he talks about finances and he says, hey, here's the reality, I'm telling you, $4,800 isn't going to cover the legal fees in any of these service areas.
That's a retainer. If that.
It's lunch.
It's lunch.
But the reality is that I want to make sure that our residents, our homeowners, recognize that there is a major item out there. And I understand Kevin's point about a special assessment. If we had any idea what that assessment would be, I would say yes, but we don't have any idea at all at this moment. And we may have to come back and talk about it. So I just want the homeowners to recognize that we're trying to give them a gentle push right now in their budgets, and recognizing that if and when there's something else, that this board will sit down and try and figure out where do we stand, where are those homeowners? I mean, are we going to put the burden on 12 homeowners to pay multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars if it comes to that? We don't know. We don't know if we're successful or unsuccessful. We don't know what the fees will be to get to a success level. I think that's Brian's point about why we need the engineering study. We've just got to move the ball forward here so that we've got some information. Recognizing that we have to pass a budget.
I would want to hear that we have a
Yeah.
sense of urgency.
Yeah, exactly.
I would be scared to, having been in this industry forever, drifting is horrible. I'd want to know there's a sense of urgency. I'd want to know that you're all over the engineering company. I'd like to personally know, as one of the board members here, what the heck date did we tell them we want this thing by? That's how you best manage lawyer fees long-term.
Right, and I would like, if I were a homeowner, I would like the truth, not that we're untrue, but I would like the board to be candid that this is a big, hairy mess, and it's gonna take a lot to work it out. And we don't know what the outcome is, and we don't know what it's gonna cost, or whether it'll be covered or not. It's the same thing I asked about previously in the board meeting tonight. The news may not be good, but let's at least acknowledge what it is. Let's just put it out there and then deal with it. And I think that that's what we're trying to do here, is to simply say to these residents, we get it, we have your sense of urgency, we're not clairvoyant, we don't know the answer yet, but we'll keep you informed, and we're not gonna play games.
Okay. I will draft that up and send it to you.
With a sense of urgency.
Yes, I will.
I would use
Any
the
further
word sense of urgency.
Any further discussion on this before we move to a vote?
Thank you.
Ready to vote? More discussion?
No, we're good. We don't
So,
see a special
I have
assessment
one
coming?
thing.
We don't see
Was
one
this
coming?
4,800
Very
for
possibility that-
6A, D, and F?
Jackson laid that out there. That's
Each
a
one?
Possibility.
Yes.
We just don't we don't know what it is yet.
And you're saying that, but that's close
We have no idea.
for legal.
We
I
have
don't
no
know.
idea.
We have no
I
idea.
literally
Until-
don't, I mean,
The current budget was 500.
there's no way to
for legal
know
for next
that,
year's
and
proposed
without going into
48.
executive
Yeah,
session,
I gotta say.
we just can't
So
say more
let's,
about
let's,
it.
let's,
I'll
let's
just-
be, let's be
okay.
careful here, because we
Yeah.
discussed this in executive session,
Yeah.
which is why we want the engineering study.
Yeah.
To know the facts, because we're sitting here with no facts, and that's not a good place to be.
Yeah.
So,
And if we get to the point in executive session where we reach a decision, I am more than happy to talk about special assessments at that point.
Right.
so the 4,800, is that gonna be in,
That's from one area.
it's for one area, but I mean, is that, is the equity, I mean, is it equal between all three areas? I know 4,800, but I mean,
Not per homeowner.
no, not per homeowner, but I'm.
Per service area, you mean?
Per service area.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
do they
right-
each
right
have the
now.
same need? I mean, is it 4,800?
At this early stage?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
but as we get into executive session and dive deeper and we have the engineering report, my guess is it will be very different based on the service area.
And instead of raising
And
fees the
advantage
next
on those
time,
roads.
would it go to maybe a special assessment? This would be an increase in the monthly assessment. Then maybe if we get more of a firm number, would that be more of a, possibly a special assessment? Rather than an increase in the, I mean, how quick's that money gonna come in? I mean,
We can't answer.
you're
that.
talking $11 or $12 a month.
Tom, you know as well as I do, we can't answer that.
We don't know, we're hypothesizing, that's.
No, I'm just throwing it out there. I don't need an answer. I'm just saying that how quick is that money gonna come in to even pay for that?
David, call the vote.
Call the vote? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Yes.
One nay? One nay. Kevin, nay. Okay, action item 7. Motion to transfer $100,000 in operating funds to replacement reserve funds for Spring Lake Townhome Service Area.
So move.
Jack motions, Brian seconds. Discussion.
Okay, so going on, focusing on the budget for Spring Lake Townhomes. When we had a meeting last year, some residents had come to the meeting and had expressed a desire to transfer some of the money from operating to reserve. And part of the reason for that was that looking, the reserve study projects projects going out 5, 7, even up to 30 years. But the assessments, the funding for the reserves was jumping extremely high. And to level that out, the request was, one, can we move some money from the operating when we had, and there was a large excess, to reserve, but also take that money over a 5-year period that's being assessed and average it out to a more reasonable. So you're not having a $20 raise one year and then a $60 raise the next year, and then maybe the next year's 30 and the next year's 100. So this was a request that was brought to us by some of the owners. We looked at the money. There is enough to cover that recommendation of 3 to 6 months of operating funds to have as a cushion for emergencies. This is extra, it gets moved to reserve, and it helps kind of level out their reserve fund assessment.
I think it's a great idea. It's no different than the one I just went through with you on the board before, and I think getting it into their replacement reserves is wonderful. And fiscally prudent.
Any further discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 8, motion to approve the proposed 2019 Artisan Park Service Area budget with a quarterly assessment of $277.50 as approved by the Artisan Park Service Area Committee on October 3, 2018.
So moved.
Thank you, Brian. Second by Jack.
I just want to correct, the motion on the agenda is typed as October 3rd, 2019. It should be 2018.
Mine says 18.
Mine says 18.
Yeah, we've been corrected.
You got a special one.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just got one question. Originally, when you and I had a conversation and they were going to go with an inflation adjustment and they ended up not doing that, what was the thought process?
There were some members of the Finance Committee that wanted to see a reduction in assessments, even though there are ongoing capital projects ahead. So the compromise was made for this year to not reduce the fees, but also not increase them. And the board has started already a discussion talking about an annual 2% increase.
Okay. So it was well thought out.
Yeah, I think it was. I think under the circumstances, it was probably the right thing to do.
Okay, thank you.
And I want to eat
Well
it
put.
close.
So just a correction for the record, on the 2018-2019 discrepancy, everyone is correct.
Except me.
No, Jackson is also correct, because on the one-page summary sheet, it is typed as 2019. On the actual agenda, it is 2018.
Great.
Just for the record.
Thank you.
So thank you, Jackson.
Call the vote.
Call the vote, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 9, motion to approve the modifications to the shutter, decorative, and storm design guidelines to include storm shutters as proposed by the ARC.
So moved.
From Brian,
Second.
second from Kevin. Discussion.
So I know you had some questions, so we specifically asked Jeffrey to be here as well. So do you have any specific questions?
I had some questions.
The roll-down shutters specifically?
Or, no, it was about any alternative. There's some inconsistency in this. The first question is, the images or the proposal shows decorative shutters that can also, that in the old days were really functional. So I want to make sure that vendors actually do exist, so that this is not a hollow proposal. Second is the background documentation also says that these shutters must be consistent with whatever else is architectural on the house. So there are places on the house that have no shutters. And so now we're going to put functional shutters. If one wanted to do a safe room and only do 3 windows, and this is not visible to the street, how would that be inconsistent? So I just didn't think it was fully addressed.
I understand.
Right, so I can address.
So please.
Those items.
Good.
First one, on the shutter types that are available, there are several hurricane-rated shutters that meet our design guidelines.
Okay.
There are the Bermuda type, which hang on an angle,
Yep.
like this, and have
Right.
louvers on them.
Right.
And there are the colonial type, which you see in most
Right.
of these pictures here. Both of those are available in a hurricane-rated shutter type. In fact, you can go online right now if you want to. I found one just the other day, hurricaneshutterflorida.com, and they have those types. The types that we have consistently not approved over the years is the roll-down type with the big
round thing at the
big
top.
thing above the window, and the corrugated type as well that get mounted on big pins that are permanently mounted. We've consistently not approved those accordion and roll-down types before, and we've had some that have been submitted to us before, because they don't match our design guidelines at all. And often, we're very concerned with absentee owners, living in and just closing down their units to be permanently gone for 6 or 8 months of the year. So there are other types of hurricane-rated shutters as well that sometimes they have backings on them, so you can't see through the louvers, and that's an impact-rated hurricane shutter. So there are levels of approvals that the different types have gone through. The edits to our design guidelines are pretty consistent with what we've been approving over the years. We've just kind of cleaned it up because there are many homes that have shutters just on the front and not on the side.
Right.
And there are also homes that have shutters with no hardware at all. And we have to acknowledge that we've allowed that to happen. We encourage people to put the hardware in, meaning the little shutter dog, the latch that holds it against the wall, and the hinge.
Right.
We encourage people to do that, whether it's operable or not. When you do an operable shutter, it should be, even when it's not operable, it should be sized appropriately to the window size. So if it were closed over top of the window, it would completely cover the window. And there are many companies that, provide those measurements. They'll come out and measure your whole house. If somebody wanted to do a safe room in the back of their house, we would probably approve that. It would be a little strange for us to approve one window on a whole front facade and say, we wouldn't do that.
Yeah, for a front facade.
For a front
For a side facade that may have 4 windows, and you want to have a safe room, because you don't want the expense of 20 windows?
Yeah, we would look at the context of that.
So a roll-down might be
site-specific.
considered for that?
Possibly, well, the operable shutter would be considered. We
Say
would-
roll down right now says it's not permitted.
Yeah, the roll down probably would not be permitted, because it is visible perhaps even to a neighbor. And that doesn't fit our design guidelines. So there are operable shutters that are hurricane rated and even impact rated that we can approve, and you can get them online. They can come out and
How about
measure.
those that have the little track at the top where we do have a house that does have that?
Somebody may have installed something over the years. We've
On all their windows.
consistently not approved that design approach. So I think we just try to stay consistent with that.
So you might do shutters that would look odd on a house if you're just doing a safe room.
Yeah, we would be very careful about the context of that. Generally, we say if you're going to put shutters on a house, we want to see them in all of the exposed public view areas. We try to be consistent with that. For the most part, the front facade.
Since Stephen was kind enough to stick around tonight, I do have a question, and that is, does this revised set of guidelines make it clearer and easier for you to do your work?
It's greater definition, but
come up, I'm sorry. Sorry. Thank you. For everybody.
It gives us greater clarity, yes. That's for inspection purposes and against the design guideline. The question, though, that I have personally is that the residents are now 26 years old. Do we now want to ask, do we want to start to change some of these design guidelines at the resident level, or to have a task force to ask that question? You say a safe room, or roll down shutters, or, you know, the other only alternative, if we're not gonna install shutters, I looked into it when I first moved here 6 years ago. The issue was 6 years ago on the two coasts, I could obtain metal shutters. I could find no contractors in Central Florida that would do the installation, that would meet the design guidelines that Celebration states. And so I had to abandon that because I couldn't find a contractor that would do it. Now, there may be some, but 6 years ago, I could not find one. So the issue with that is that if we're gonna do design guidelines, maybe be it for shutters, because the only other alternative that I know of right now, if you're talking about protection for hurricane, is the installation of ballistic glass, hurricane-rated windows. Because the shutters, all that is a shield in front of it.
Yeah, right.
But you're asking me from a covenant standpoint, more guidance is better, yes, but then it depends upon how the inspectors are gonna go out, and they then have to be given a whole now new set of guidance as to how to read this. But again, we have, and it's per the board, instructions to us, anything that's 5 years old and has not been brought up is grandfathered, and we will not touch it. Okay, because that's where we stand.
But what about less than 5?
If it's less than 5 years and it's been recorded into that thing, that's where we're standing right now, is that something has not been brought to the attention of town hall and brought through as a violation to the design guidelines or something like that, and we're not pursuing that. I mean, just because someone was bad and it hasn't been picked up, I mean, I can't go back and, you know, and I'm in my tenure, things have been brought up that were 10 years ago, and it's just been riding through the community this long.
Yeah, Michael was here earlier representing ARC, which is the group that would be approving or denying the request to put these on. The Covenants Committee is more of the follow-up if it's a violation after the fact.
And it's the enforcement part. All I'm stating is, again, you're
I'm sorry,
making me
I said covenants, but I was talking about the enforcement, so.
Yeah, but you're, again, ARC will set the guidelines, I end up being the enforcement side of the thing.
Makes it easier for you to have it clear.
If I have it clear, it will improve it.
So I have a silly question. The purpose of this, as I'm understanding it, is for hurricanes. It's for hurricanes. It's not for necessarily privacy or safe rooms or anything like that. It's for hurricanes.
Well, we've submitted this revision because there's several little things that we wanted to clean up, but it also does include the possibility of using hurricane shutters.
Okay,
Absolutely.
so that's where the hurricane part came from. All right. Because I want to make sure, if anything came up with hurricanes, you want to make sure somebody protects their property and, you know, you just have a guideline, take them down within 14 days, whatever, something like that. But
And the intent of a safe room is so that you secure one room. It's a lower cost. That's the bottom line.
And did ARC propose these to management? Is this where it came from? I mean, I'm looking at the justification, and it says, in consultation with ARC. Is that an accurate statement?
Yes,
I think
yes.
the
we've
board
reviewed
ultimately
these.
drove this conversation.
I remember
and then
raising the
it's been
question a
reviewed
year
with
ago to ask ARC to look at this after Irma.
the hurricane, yeah.
Yeah. Impact windows are also encouraged.
Sure.
Because you don't have the hurricane shutter requires somebody to go and close the shutter and put it in position.
Right.
So it requires that.
So one of your considerations with roll down was a concern about absentee owners.
Yeah, yeah.
So did the ARC consider post-hurricane windows must appear back to normal look?
No, we simply said that roll-down shutters are not acceptable. Stylistically, architecturally, they're not consistent with anything that we've ever approved on a house before. So we've automatically said, no, those don't fit. There are other shutter types that are hurricane rated that you can install that do fit.
And you
So
have
those are the ones
faux
we've
shutters
considered.
anyway that stay closed all the time.
Yes,
So, I mean.
Right,
but it still meets our design.
Right,
guidelines.
yes, part of the design guidelines.
right, there's some that are, yeah.
Just a clarification, all we're doing is proving what you've done. Then it goes out to the community for 30 days, then it comes back for approval.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
So the community gets the first shot at it.
And these can still be revised again.
Do we have to address in here? that
Say
this is
it
a-
again?
Do we have to address in here that this is a prospective change?
Prospective, meaning,
Meaning for new shutter applications, we're not going back and changing what's already been done? Or
well,
how does that work?
from this point forward,
If
these
somebody
are.
had if somebody had a shutter that was not in compliance, it would have been addressed already through the covenants committee. Unless it was something that happened over 5 years ago that was approved or grandfathered in. But moving forward, if homeowners, as Mr. Anderson has addressed, concerned about hurricanes and they want to install shutters that are hurricane-proof, they would go through this process now with the new design guidelines as the guideline for the ARC committee to approve or not.
Got it.
Do we have any current applications in front of ARC for shutters or hurricane protection?
Shutters, no.
So at this particular moment, there's nobody that's in the sort of neutral ground.
How many have come
There
forward
are-
in the last year? General requests?
There are many projects that have windows with shutters on them, but they don't request hurricane-style shutters.
How many have you had in the last year since Irma?
Of,
Hurricane?
Yeah,
for hurricane?
any hurricane treatment?
None,
None.
Yeah.
none. We've had a few that are operable, real
Right,
operable
right.
shutters.
They wanted real shutters.
Yeah,
Okay.
but not hurricane rated.
What about Island Village? Will
Yeah.
they have hurricane shutters on anything?
I don't know.
Can't say.
Or as a purchase option, perhaps.
Generally, the level of cost that they're building is typical, like Celebration, and they don't typically install
Yeah,
hurricane
$1 million
rated.
home, you might consider it.
You might, exactly. In the
Okay.
Bahamas, you
Let's
might
do windows
consider it as well.
instead. Go with windows instead.
Any further discussion on this? Anyone? Call the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you, Jeffrey. Motion to approve third annual installment of the Civic Quarter Assessment to the CDD, amount of $30,116.67. CROA Capital Improvement Expenditure.
So move.
Thank you, Jack.
Second.
Brian, second.
And just for clarification, that is the road that the development district built to their building that they assessed CROA for the portion in front of the dog park.
We
Any
don't
further
have-
discussion?
Yeah, we don't have any choice in this.
No, we don't have a choice. I think that's.
It's a shorty. They had to build the road anyhow.
All right, call the question, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 11 was removed. Item 12, motion to approve a proposal by Vice Painting to paint faded portions of the exterior of the service area, the amount of $8,250, Spring Lake Townhome Service Area operating expenditure.
Motion approved.
From Debbie to
Second.
approve and Brian to second.
Okay.
Any discussion? Material's pretty clear? I don't think.
Call the question.
Call the question. Thank you, Jack. I don't think we need you. No offense.
Bye.
All, bye. All,
Just stay.
maybe stay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 13, motion to convert the gutter repairs at South Village Townhomes by American Seamless Gutters in the amount of $1,249.50 from operating expenditure to replacement reserves expenditure.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Brian. Jack, second. Any discussion? All the question, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 14, motion to approve the roof repairs by Performance Roofing in North Village, Charleston Place, and South Village in the amount of $3,000 to $2,250 as a North Village Service Area Replacement Reserve expenditure, and $750 as a South Village Service Area Replacement Reserve expenditure.
So move.
Thank you, Jack.
I'll second.
Second, Kevin.
comment.
Oh,
Sorry.
go.
And this kind of ties to the past one because I'm looking at the whole picture. There's an email that came through from an owner regarding gutters and all that stuff. I don't know if the board recalls that. I think the roof something was done right on the building, that the roofing was worked on, and then the gutter was fairly new and it got ripped off and they
That
put
was
it back on.
Roseville Corner. That was
Okay.
not one of these. but
Okay,
yes.
we're not gonna find ourselves in a similar situation with either of these processes, right? Where an owner is going to get upset about.
Because they just did the
something they just
gutters
did, or
a year ago or
And they're
something.
ripping them off, yeah.
everything's working together at the same time.
Okay, so this action
Painting.
item is in tandem with the ones you see every month about roof repairs, only it's a gutter repair. So when the roof was replaced at these 3 service areas in 2017, they also replaced gutters and downspouts. So the gutter and downspout company was a subcontractor under the roofer. So the process is the same through legal, that when there is an issue, whether it be gutter or roof, we notify the attorney. They send a 10-day notice out to the company, and with the scheduled date of the repair, which in this case is American Seamless, and then it gets coordinated and repaired. But we have to go through the legal process because it's part of that roof project.
Okay.
The email you're describing was about Roseville Corner, and she was asking about some gutters that had been.
Completely two separate
Yes.
style situations.
Yes,
Okay, I
yes.
wanted to make sure that this was not.
So because you're going to legal here, we're gonna chase these funds in ultimately from someone else, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, this is part of that package.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 15, motion to approve painting in North Village Pavilion and Pool Building and Pavilion by Leonard Painting in the amount of $4,500 from CROA Replacement Reserve Expenditure.
So moved.
Thank you, Brian. Second from?
Second.
From Vaughn. Any discussion?
Yes, I've not heard of Leonard Painting before. Are they a new company to us?
To us, yes, they are. I actually sent this out to 6 different painting companies. Didn't get responses from 3 of them. Leonard Painting is a member of CAI. Met them at several trade shows
Okay.
and meetings. I want to give them an opportunity to bid on it. That's why you'll see in there that we requested awarding just one project to them to fill them out. They are a little low on their pricing for North Village. However, I think they're within lines based on the reserve study.
And I will say, this just is a name that I saw on here, but I have seen them and their work in other communities, so.
I know, I looked them up in Better Business Bureau, and I don't see any complaints against them.
Yeah, they're.
It's just I've not seen them, and I know Vice competitively bid the next project with, and won it
Correct.
against them.
Right.
So I'm just wondering why there's such a large
I did have them
differential.
go back, both of them, and look at their numbers for North Village, just to confirm that they were seeing everything that I was seeing, and they stood firm on their numbers. So,
Okay.
They also, you'll see, you didn't see the whole scope, the scope states that warranty-wise, if the paint manufacturer offers a 7-year warranty, I demanded or requested or insisted that the paint company also provides a 7-year warranty.
Fantastic.
So a lot of companies are out there saying, oh, well, that's a paint manufacturer defect, on their paint, and then you fight it, so it's equal.
Smart guy.
Okay.
Further discussion? Let's call the question. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Motion to approve painting of Spring Park Pool Building and Heritage Hall by Vice Painting, the amount of $13,590, CROA Replacement Reserve Expenditure.
So moved. Second.
From Jack. Who?
Second.
I think
Kevin?
Kevin did.
Whoever wants it.
I get the second part of it.
Jack has the second, Kevin made the motion. Discussion? Call the question, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Motion to approve asphalt repairs at Lakeside and Town Hall by Asphalt Restoration Technology Systems. Amount of $49.95, CROA Replacement Reserve Expenditure.
Motion to approve?
From Debbie,
Second.
second from Jack.
Call the vote.
Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Motion to approve asphalt seal coating at Lakeside Heritage Hall and driveway to Town Hall by Asphalt Restoration Technology Systems. amount of $69.95, CROA replacement reserve expenditure. From Brian, and Jack is trying to say second.
I'll say second, the question on the same motion.
What were you going to say?
I was trying to listen to Brian, he's passing the motion before he called for it there.
And that will happen after your speed bumps, or before the speed bumps go
That's
down.
gonna be my question too.
Right.
What is happening with speed bumps?
The speed bumps are on order. The manufacturer has them coming in the latter part of November. So if you approve
Just
the
on
seal
that.
coating, we'll have to coordinate with Parks and Rec and make sure it's most likely going to be in January after the holidays.
Yeah. Before the snow.
Exactly.
Any further discussion on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Motion to approve the purchase of 4 drinking fountains for Spring Park and Hippodrome from Mark Starr, the amount of $13,793.21, CROA replacement reserve.
Now we're all gonna be quiet? So moved.
Kevin.
Second.
Debbie.
I got a
Jeff.
question. This 4 drinking fountains for $13,000. I could buy a bunch of coolers and a lot of water bottles. You know, that's a lot of
They
money.
are nice.
You're offering to
They
buy
are
them?
nice.
Well, I mean,
And-
for $13,000 I could.
And Jack, hold on, I might actually ask for a couple more dollars on this. I actually, Todd was showing them to me, and I was asking to see if they had the kind that would have the doggy bowl fountain underneath as well. I'm not a huge dog park person and all that stuff, but I do think that fits in with our community. And I've seen them around where they have on the lower level with the dog park bowl. And I think you said it was a couple of dollars more. If
Yeah,
it
I
was
don't have an
possible.
exact number on it yet. I did email the manufacturer and have not received an answer back. Just remember to do it today, so I apologize.
Could you do an up to amount?
I'm guesstimating probably $500 option
Per
each?
fountain, yes. But I wouldn't recommend all 4 of these fountains to have the doggy feature because of their locations and proximity to each other, especially Spring Park. I think one is feasible there, and then the other one up at Hippodrome or North Village, wherever we put that.
It might be something nice for, instead of just always replacing with like and staying status quo, to have something new in the community.
Well, along that line, up in North Village, you put the water bottle fillers
We did.
in them.
Yes.
And so why do we go away from bottle fillers?
That's a good question. Well, we have the bottle filler. In the Spring Park area, the bottle filler will be on the building because they're chilled. It's up to y'all, but I don't think you really get a lot of use out of bottle fillers that are not chilled water.
So we're putting hot water drinking water.
No, well, it's replacing what's there. It's not chilled water that you put in a drinking bottle.
Okay, no more discussion, I'm fine.
Should we table this until he looks into the different styles, or do you want to?
Well, we don't have the different styles. This is
Yeah, I know.
replacing like kind. That's why you only see the one price there, because it's from Murdoch Fountain.
If
And
you
that's
do it-
their
Want to
ones.
authorize
it
up to
up to
$15,000
then that should be
total,
enough to cover.
and
And you
to
can move it
two
along.
of the 4
Yeah.
per Todd's.
We said 500, maybe 500 apiece, so you're talking more than 15.
Which two?
No, it's
15,000.
14,700.
For just
Could be
2
14,000.
No, it's just
Round it
going
up to
to 2.
15.
So I thought you said 500 apiece.
Yeah, but it's only gonna do 2.
Oh, only 2 of them are going to do
So
that.
correct.
Oh, okay, I'm
So
sorry.
make the motion up to $15,000, because he's estimating 500, it
Yeah.
might be 550, 6.
Okay.
And it was Kevin's motion
Yeah.
originally, right?
Yeah.
I'll do the
So it's
second.
that adjustment.
Did I second that?
Are you doing?
I amended
Or
that.
did I wait for you?
I seconded
No,
it.
Rachel?
Whoever second.
Stephen, it was
Yes.
Kevin and Debbie up to 15.
Kevin and Debbie.
What's the proximity of the 2 that you did not want to have this option, and why?
There's 2 at Spring Park, one on each side of the back
Oh, I see.
horseshoe shape.
Oh, okay, so only have 1 in the same area?
Yes.
Okay.
That's the point.
And the
One
same
per-
thing with the other one?
One per area, one
Okay,
in
one per-
Hippodrome,
One
that
for
one.
Hippodrome,
Okay.
one for Spring Park, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Thank you for your suggestion.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank
Item
you.
20, motion to approve to initiate the finding process for 45 non-compliance items, which has been adjusted to 26, if I'm reading that correctly. 26 non-compliance items.
So moved. Second.
Jackson and Jack. Any discussion? Ready to call the question? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 21, motion to approve to convert one fine to a specific assessment.
So move.
From Jack,
Second.
and second from Jackson.
So I'd like to talk about this for just a minute, because this one has to do with short-term rentals.
Yeah.
And I would like to get a sense from Tony or from Steve as to how pervasive the short-term rental situation is right now. I see a fair amount in Artisan Park of properties that appear to be changing occupants on a regular basis and then vacant. Can you address that a little bit?
I would say in the last couple months, ones that we have caught, they've immediately stopped. I would say there's probably, give or take, 5 to 10 that we're just trying to figure out what is going on before we can proceed, but otherwise, they're pretty stopped at this point.
Well, I just want to add to that too, that I think that this board, I know in the time that I've been here, has been very clear on their stand that this is zero tolerance for this. And when we identify them, we will, to the fullest extent of what we have the capabilities of doing, we'll go after them. Sometimes it's challenging to prove. We always have to begin with the end in mind. If it does go all the way to a mediation or court, what kind of proof can we get? But we are very clear with folks that it's just not going to be tolerated by the CROA board.
Bennett, not to call you out for a moment, with Island Village, do you or do anybody have any thought or possibility to going to short-term in Island Village?
And I'll let
Short-term
Bennett-
vacation rentals.
and I don't know if Bennett wants to come up on camera to answer that, but if it falls underneath the CROA documents, I don't think that's an option.
But charters can change by TCC.
If it's-
They
if
can
it's
make
a
the
new
change and
charter,
force it
then
on
that's
us.
a different question.
My current understanding is that we only have long-term rental options.
Long-term defined as?
Apartments.
1 year.
Has it been
1 year?
discussed to do any kind of a vacation rental, timeshare, anything along those lines within Island Village?
At present, I don't believe we have any, Manami has any plans for any short-term rental.
Okay,
Do you know
thank
if
you.
there's any plans to have a supplemental charter for Island Village and not fall underneath the existing CROA charter?
I'm not quite 100% sure on that. I know that there are draft documents related to, the DCCROs that are DCCROs for Celebration Island Village, which I thought I had run across the other day, and I was like, oh, so we're doing new ones here? So I'm not 100% sure what those are and how much of a deviation they may be from the current documents, but, yeah, I don't know.
Who does the review on those?
I don't know.
We can do a little bit more research on our side too and find out what the process looks like.
I'd like to ask that when and if that decision was made, that it would be communicated to us promptly.
Okay.
Thank you.
On the motion, any further discussion? Thank you for raising that. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 22, motion to approve the following. I think we can combine these unless someone wants to separate them. A, intent to lien letters for 41 CROA resident accounts. And B, 2 service area resident accounts who are delinquent for more than one assessment.
So move.
From Jack,
Second.
second from Brian.
I'm just looking at the service area account, that's the same person twice. They have, what exactly are they not paying?
I think that looks like it's probably an additional assessment that just wasn't combined in there,
Okay.
right?
So I think that should be just stated that anytime someone's paid up, we wouldn't send them an ITL letter.
Right.
We do check them again before they go out.
Okay.
Any further discussion on those? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 23, motion to approve 2 attorney-recommended write-offs for $23,230.33.
Are these both part of legal bankruptcies or something where the
Let's
judge
get
is
the motion.
That's
instructed
a
us to do
motion.
that? Or motion,
Brian,
so moved.
Brian has the
Second.
motion,
Second.
second from Jackson. Are these part of bankruptcies?
They-
Yes, is that what's going on here?
Yes, they're both mortgage foreclosures that have settled that our new attorney had, and of that, $19,435 is fines.
Was the fines?
So it's not $23,000 in assessments, 19 of that is fines.
Or we're just writing off everything?
We've collected some, but we're writing off everything else as directed by the attorney.
So the number
Because of the
one,
foreclosure.
Because
number
of
one
the
has
foreclosure.
attorney's fees, number 2 does not? Is that the change in attorneys throughout?
The legal fees, we're talking about, yes, that's strictly related to attorney's fees from the prior attorney.
The old attorney versus the new, that's why
Right,
those are not being
right.
on here, okay. And that's the way it will be from this point forward.
Yes, on
Which is
any
nice.
new ones
Okay.
that they've handled that we didn't have a bill from the prior attorney, yes, that's what they'll look like.
We would only be waiving the fake stuff, fines, covenants,
If
and
there's-
interest.
So I'll go back to my question. The foreclosure was approved by a judge who required them to have us waive all this.
Yes, the attorney actually gives us instruction. They give us a check and they say, you know, this is all we can collect from a legal standpoint, write the rest off, and that's,
Did they negotiate to, is that what they do? They negotiate to go ahead and say, we can get rid of the HOA for you?
There's law for
No.
safe harbor for what the.
That's why I was asking the
We
question.
just rubber
If the
stamp
judge
it.
said this is final, we're done.
Yeah.
I mean, the
Just rubber
technical
stamp.
term is a cram down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
And that's pretty descriptive.
That's,
Um,
got it.
If there was a short sale on these properties, the bank resold the properties, are we entitled to any recovery at all in a short sale?
statutorily, I believe, most of the attorneys will tell you you're entitled to 1 year of assessments.
Safe
Safe harbor is exactly right.
Or percentage, right?
Or, yes, a percentage
Very
of.
low.
So do we know if
1%.
either property 1 or property 2 is on the market for sale by the lenders?
We don't. I don't know.
One of them is.
I don't
But
know.
I don't think these are short sale, though. These are actual foreclosures.
Well,
Right.
but once the foreclosures happen, somebody owns that property. Typically, it's a lender. The lender then makes some effort to resell the property. Are we taking proactive steps to protect what possible amounts we might be able to get in a resale circumstance is really my
Once
question.
the bank takes title, then everything prior to that, and they pay the 1 year safe harbor, and they pay assessments moving forward. So when a new owner takes title to the property, they're most likely going to upgrade it and get it up to community standards as well as pay their assessments moving
Well,
forward.
on these two properties, I guess my question is, has the lender taken over the property, and is the lender paying current CROA dues?
If they did not, they would go to the attorney just like anyone else.
So basically, once the new owner takes over, it goes into our regular processes with our regular
Right.
accounts receivable and everything. So
Right.
it's in the system.
All right, and this question pops up every so often by
Mhm.
the CROA board, but this is the item when it says attorney recommended write-offs. That's essentially saying the attorney's done everything they can within this bankruptcy case, and now we have to write it off, or it stays on the books.
Call a vote.
Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Last item, 24, motion to approve 1 fee waiver request for $29.60.
So moved. Second.
Brian, Jack.
Brian.
Brian and then Jack. Discussion, management recommended that?
The resident requested that,
Yeah.
and yes, we
And
did.
management did
It's
recommend
falls
it.
within that number of
Yeah.
times.
Any
Yeah.
further discussion? Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Board comments?
I have one comment, which is, we know from the email that Steve sent us that garage apartments are gonna start having a assessments done on them by the county.
Impact fees?
Impact fees and that, yes.
Garage apartments that are rented?
No.
No, all of them, any
It's new construction.
Oh, new construction.
New construction. But isn't that separate, the garage apartment separate from the main building though?
Yes, and the other comment that I'd question is, Beth Ann Knight's response was that it's part of the DRI. I believe that the DRI was rescinded a couple of years ago. So I don't know that we
2013.
can count on the DRI, so I need to have a follow-up conversation.
Okay.
Would you clear, Jack, what was that? You were saying a separate,
If is a separate building, like certain garages are separated from the
What she
main
said was a
house?
separate dwelling.
Yes.
Yeah, would that be a?
separate dwelling unit, meaning?
Yeah, not building onto your house, but actually building a separate garage.
The rumor, I'd like Steve to research it more, because the rumor is already in the marketplace, and I have been approached to ask about the question. So I'd like us to do a little more homework, have them, and then come back and say, this is truth or not truth, because it affects how people think about building and stuff like here. It'll affect, I don't know if it'll affect
Values
our
of it.
village or not, if they just have one, or if they did 2 dwelling units, if they'd have 2 of them, so.
I think it was 3 years ago, TCC came and spoke to the board about that ending, that DRI ending. So I have to get a little bit more clarification from Beth Ann.
So we'll have that for a follow-up.
I heard it was only effective starting, what, last month or this
October
month?
5th,
was
I
it? They
believe.
weren't gonna do a retro on it?
I don't know, I have to.
I thought there was an initial email on that.
Need more information. You want to raise anything more?
No.
I have some things, but I'm going to save them for everybody. Everybody has a drive home.
We'll save them for the
workshop next
workshop.
week.
Workshop
Just
in a
let's
week.
budget some time for it.
Have some time to process.
9:30 on the
Kevin,
workshop?
is it
9:30,
anything that I can work on in
No, no,
advance?
nothing bad.
Send it
Nothing
to
bad.
me.
11:30.
9:30?
Nothing at all.
Is that what your
Is
question
that
was?
what- yes.
Yeah. Regular workshop time, Monday, 9:30 a.m.
No, PM, I wouldn't be.
No PM.
We could just start one at
We need one
9:30.
more motion.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn, thank you. All in
Until,
favor?
For 40 minutes.
Aye. We're adjourned.
Survive.
I'm hungry.